青き光と魔剣のブラックスミス。
Don't judge a book by its cover. These are words I think most of us can agree on, but at the same time, a lot of us are hypocrites when it comes down to it. Last year I played Chrono Gear, a game I bought because I was lured in by the thought of pretty anime women. Said game then became my new favorite 2D platformer, despite me going in expecting nothing. Because a game like this couldn't deliver much, right? I thought I learned the don't judge the book by the cover lesson then, but it seems history will repeat itself. I am a man with exquisite tastes. We all respect women here. Some of us respect women a lot, to the point where we view them as superior beings. And those feelings sometimes trickle down into our desires. So when I'm browsing the P-site looking for specific things that suit my devious desire to be subservient to beautiful ladies, I came across some very well-made live 2D animations. Naturally, I'm curious about the source material, which led me to the D-site, where my brain thought, wow, this is a gold mine, but am I really gonna buy this? Nah. That was like a year or two ago. Maybe even more. Late February, I came across more previews and curiosity spikes again. This time, though, I caved. Words cannot describe the immense shame I felt after actually buying something from the D-site, when there's basically unlimited goo material out there on the internet for free. I know I own Hoodie Pop 2 on Steam, but like, that's an actually good puzzle game. That's perfectly justifiable. This is just an H game. Why would I buy? And then here I am, 150 hours later, making a 25,000 word review of a game that made me cry at the end. And it's an eroge. Buckle in, boys. It's time for a very, very lengthy review on one of the best eroge ever made. Although I'm not sure if I have the qualifications to be claiming that since I've only played like 3. If this video doesn't get age restricted, that would be one hell of a miracle. The Shimmering Horizon and Cursed Blacksmith, or Aoki Hikari to Maken no Blacksmitsu, which I believe translates literally as Azure Light and the Cursed Sword's Blacksmith, is a turn-based mystery dungeon RPG combined with some roguelite elements. Rather than the traditional turn-based combat consisting of static characters with position being irrelevant, everything instead takes place on the 2D tile grid at all times. Every action, be it moving, attacking, using a skill, using items, or even changing equipment, takes up your turn. Every enemy around you follows the same rules, taking their turn afterward. If you've played any of the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, it's pretty much just like that and you'll feel right at home. I really love this style of gameplay, and it's weird to see it hasn't been used very much elsewhere. Kinda feels like something that's been missing my entire life. Not only is exploration and combat seamless, since there's no need to switch between an overworld and battle screen, but it's also much more interesting since you and your enemy's positions are part of the strategy, making it much deeper than most RPGs. And that's just the foundation. Cursed Blacksmith has a mountain of intricacies stacked on top of it that really make it shine. The game is about a blacksmith, so of course he's going to be doing a lot of blacksmithing. Weapon crafting is the defining feature of this game, and you'll be doing it constantly. As this is not a yaoi game, our protag has small dainty hands that deal fuck all damage, so he needs to use those hands to forge up weapons on the fly instead. All around the game, you'll start accumulating various materials, all with unique stats and differing effects. There are 3 main parts of every material. Mass, which is how big the weapon is. Bigger weapons generally damage more, have better crowd control, and take up more inventory space. Smaller weapons are generally more nimble and can block more. Tenacity, which equates to your weapon's physical damage. And magic, which equates to your weapon's magic damage. Who would have guessed? You can take 3 materials, or 4 and 5 later in the game, and forge them together. You'll then get a random weapon based on the combined stats of the materials you used, from a list of over 120 different weapons. They're all pretty much entirely unique, with their own skills and effects. Materials also have a chance to carry extra unique effects on them, which are included in the final result. There are 6 damage types in the game. Physical damage, which is affected by tenacity, and the 5 magic damage types, affected by the magic stat. Physical damage is consistent, but magic damage is somewhat randomized. Materials with magic on them will increase one of the 5 randomly, unless it's a pure elemental like a fire crystal, which adds fixed magic damage in the fire element. Forging with an item like that will also bias the crafting to give you a weapon that specializes in that element. Weapons also have critical chance and block rate. It's pretty obvious what that critical chance is, but block rate needs some explanation. Every weapon has its base block rate and block rate accumulation. Every turn you do not take damage, your block rate will increase based on the weapon you have equipped. This is the chance you will parry and deflect the hit, nullifying it entirely. Each time you take damage or parry, your block rate lowers, though never below the base amount your weapon has. Certain weapon types, like rapiers or other light weapons, are generally better at blocking than others. As you naturally expect with there being different damage types, enemies have their respective weaknesses and strengths. Using the right weapon for the right foe can be the difference between survival and defeat, so optimizing your weapons to different strengths is a good idea. Almost every weapon has their own unique signature skill, so you're looking at maybe 100 or more unique skills that all do different things. Some use the weapon's total damage, while others deal damage from one element. Some skills are dash skills, jump skills, inflict various status debuffs to enemies, and buffs to you. I will say the balancing in the skill department is kind of off. The skills that deal weapon damage are almost unanimously better than elemental skills. Elemental damage skills aren't useless, they definitely have their times to shine and offer a few unique advantages, but if I had to pick between 175% fire damage versus 130% weapon damage, I'm going to be picking the weapon damage skill every time. This is probably a symptom of how goddamn random magic damage is. You can make a fire element weapon, enhance it with like 5 magic crystals, and you're basically throwing darts at the dartboard and praying you land the bullseye each time. Yes, I love my flame rapier with 40 wind damage and 50 fire damage. Very useful. Even things like fire crystals aren't exempt from this, because even though they add flat fire damage as its bonus effect, the actual magic stat part of it is still randomized, so you'll still likely end up with a bunch of small element damages of the wrong type. Not a big deal for weapon damage skills or normal attacks, since it's all combined anyway, but when I'm trying to make Burning Cross strong enough to one-hit kill a hive slime, it's kind of annoying to see water damage on a fire weapon. Why do 300% fire damage when I can deal 150% weapon damage and send my opponent flying into the stratosphere with Strike of Fury? This is less of an issue with physical skills like Kinetic Slash, because although it only uses one damage type, physical damage is way more consistent to build. Like I said, they're not useless, they're just outclassed. But here's the real fun part with skills. Weapons in the game have limited durability. I know, that sounds like an annoyance, but hear me out. Unlike Zelda, where the weapon just disappears into the air with a fuck you, breaking a weapon in Cursed Blacksmith is usually an opportunity. Anytime a weapon breaks, you can get its scrap and essence. The scrap retains a large chunk of the weapon's tenacity and magic, as well as various skills that it had. The essence carries its unique effects. The essence is usually useless, but the scrap, ho ho ho, this is where the fun begins. You can take this scrap and use it as forging material to create a new weapon. That weapon will then inherit whatever skills or bonuses the scrap has, so now you have a new weapon with extra skills, often with better stats as well. If the weapon already has a skill that's part of the scrap, it will level up and become stronger instead. This is fucking amazing. This is the only game I played where durability isn't something that makes me want to hang myself, and that deserves commendation. That's not the only way to get skills or level them up either, as there are sword mounds around the game that can add additional skills or level up existing ones. The skills to choose from are randomly picked from the pool of weapons you have crafted, so the more you craft, the more varied your options can be. But wait, we're not done. Every weapon can also be enhanced. The number of enhancement slots on each weapon is random based on your forging level, which increases as you continue to make new weapons. Enhancements are just extra material slots you can throw at it to further beef it up. Weapon scraps work too, and the skill inheritance works exactly the same. Take the 120 unique weapons, 100 plus skills, the inheritance and enhancement system, all the random additional effects, and various material types, and you have a gargantuan sandbox with basically infinite possibilities. And that's just the crafting part. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of all the other systems and mechanics this game has to offer. The best part is that, despite how complicated everything seems, the system is actually quite easy to understand while offering plenty of room for those experienced with it to create hyper-optimized weapons of mass destruction. Next up, we have accessories, another insanely fleshed out mechanic that further deepens the already near infinite abyss that is this game's theory crafting. There are over 60 different accessories in the game, and you guessed it, they all have their own unique effects. These effects range from useless to almost mandatory in certain scenarios. You can have up to 4 accessories equipped at any time, and like weapons, they have durability, which is randomly lost upon taking damage. I like this. It makes avoiding damage feel more important, as if you have a valuable accessory you want to keep, you're obligated to choose what to prioritize, your weapon durability or accessory durability. Accessories start out as unidentified. As far as I can tell, all that really means is that when they break, you don't get its essence. Spread throughout the game are these silver chests. Opening them will identify an accessory, allowing you to keep its essence when it breaks. Accessories can also be enchanted, which is basically the enhancement system all over again. Most accessories start with random additional effects on them, usually pulled from the base effects of other accessories. However, around the game you'll find these enchanting pedestals, which let you use materials to further power them up. Blue pedestals focus on defense, where tenacity gives physical defense and magic gives random elemental defense. Not gonna lie, using blue enchant tables is almost useless, because the red ones exist instead. Red enchanting stations add extra damage directly onto the accessory, like how enhancements do for weapons. This is then added onto your weapon damage as long as you're wearing the accessory. Needless to say, having 4 fully upgraded damage accessories is way better than 4 defense accessories, because why build to take less damage when you can just build to obliterate all enemies in one strike, therefore making your accessories last longer anyway because you won't be losing durability. Any additional effects on the materials you use also get put on the accessory, including skills. Yes, that's right. You can break a weapon and then put its scrap on an accessory, and that weapon's skills will be available to you with any weapon. The only problem with this system is the dependency on RNG. Sometimes you just can't find any red enchanting stations, like anywhere. There's a few fixed ones spread throughout the world, but these are one-time use only, so once they're gone you have no choice but to wander around and pray you find more. Mildly annoying, but it's usually no big deal. Lastly, we have items, because it's not an RPG without items. You have your usual potions and whatnot, but there's also a bunch of unique trinkets that can save you in a pinch. You can even use these items as forging or enhancement material. Health potions increase your HP regeneration while the weapon is out, and debuff potions give you a chance to apply that debuff anytime you strike with a weapon. This applies to accessories too, with blue stations giving resistance to debuffs and red stations giving a chance to apply it with any weapon. I think this is generally kind of useless though, as it'd be better to just stack more damage on the weapon instead. The only exception to this is HP recovery rate, especially at the beginning of hardcore mode where you're seriously starving for it. Let's talk souls. No, not Dark Souls, just souls. Blue souls. Souls are this game's primary currency, and it's used in just about everything. Crafting, enhancing weapons, enchanting, buying from shops, upgrades, and more all consume or provide this resource in some way. Every enemy you kill will reward you with souls, and stronger enemies will give you more. You can also get souls by throwing unwanted items into incinerators or finding items that grant you souls on use. Everything we've talked about so far, materials, weapons, accessories, and items all take up space in your inventory, which is weight-based. Heavier weapons take up more space, and raw materials can take up varying amounts of space. Inventory management can sometimes be a pain, but it's a good system to have. It adds another layer of strategy and thoughtfulness to the gameplay. Say you want to keep a bunch of strong materials to put on accessories. Well, now you just got a shit ton of junk taking up space for everything else until you find an enchanting station. Maybe you want one weapon of every element to cover all your bases, but now you're short on space to be carrying items or other spare materials. Some people might find the inventory capacity a bit limiting, but I think it strikes a good middle ground, discouraging thoughtless hoarding while not requiring you to micromanage everything you pick up at every corner. And those are the main systems this game has to offer. Just the weapon crafting alone offers enough depth to keep people entertained, but combined with the accessory and item game, that gargantuan sandbox from earlier is now expanded to galactic proportions. This game has some of the most fleshed out gameplay I've ever experienced in an RPG, and none of it really feels bloated or tacked on. It's no wonder I was able to play the game 4 separate times over the course of a month, clocking in 150 hours of playtime. Cool. You've got a wicked sandbox the size of a galaxy, but a sandbox is boring with nobody to play with. Cursed Blacksmith offers a wide array of enemy types, from simple slimes and creatures to various elite enemies that will kick your shit in if you charge in without a plan. The start of the game keeps it simple with enemies that just walk at you and hit you up close, but as you progress, regular enemies will start shooting projectiles, casting magic, dashing, leaving residue, summoning a bunch of other weaker enemies, shape-shifting, or just hitting really hard and being tanky. Some enemies are ground-based, others fly. They're not too complicated, but in a giant mop of various enemy types, there's plenty of choices for what enemies need to go first. There's both human and demon enemies, and what's cool about this is that they'll actually fight each other on contact, which you can use to your advantage. There's a trade-off though, as enemies can level up like you, and if an enemy levels up too much, they can become particularly dangerous, especially if it's an elite, which we'll talk about in just a second. I will say that a few enemy types in the game are particularly annoying. For one, the human spellcasters in the game, for some reason, have the ability to knock the player back like 3 tiles if you get within a tile range. This is really fucking stupid considering they can attack you from anywhere on screen, even without line of sight, and you get punished for trying to close the distance. They're weak to physical, so they're pretty easy to dispatch by throwing a topaz or something at it, but their knockback skill feels like a dumb catch-22 that obligates you to throw something, use a mobility skill, or just wait for them to start casting before closing the last tile gap and taking a hit, finishing them off afterward. Demon spellcasters don't have this problem and they work just fine, so the human ones really don't need it. Ranged enemies, like archers and larva shadows, can shoot projectiles around corners, but you can't hit them around corners without a specific buff only available in the late game, and not consistently. This is dumb. I'm point blank and I'm getting shot by arrows, but can't do anything about it besides moving one more block and taking another hit because Protag is incapable of swinging their weapon around a corner. I don't care if arrows are thin and my sword is the size of my body, this is incredibly frustrating. Projectiles in melee should follow the same collision rules. There's also these annoying pricks that show up later in the game called blast shadows. I hate these little fuckers with a passion. They charge up and shoot 3x3 grids of magic bombs that deal damage 3 times. That's not too bad on its own, but they're like spellcasters in that they have a huge range and also don't require line of sight. Worse, they don't have aggro indicators like other enemies do, so you don't even know that they've seen you until it starts charging. They're not very common, but in a few select areas of the game, they're plastered fucking everywhere, usually in hard to reach or awkward spaces. Bonus points for these areas having thick fog usually, so you can literally be targeted by one you haven't even seen yet. They're stationary, but they're also unusually sturdy. You might have to throw 2 or 3 things at it or use 2 magic skills just to take a single one down. Any encounter with these hell spawns proposes the immediate question of, would you rather lose a bunch of accessory durability or weapon durability? Please make your choice now, and there is no option C. They're not too bad on their own, but when you're trying to deal with a massive horde of other enemies, or god forbid elites, these little fuckers make me want to throw my monitor out the window. Please give them aggro indicators at the very least. Making them more fragile so I can just chuck a topaz at them and be done would also be appreciated if you feel like tossing me a bone. That small tangent aside, we can move on to the elites, the real deal. These are the big baddies, complete with voice acting and specialized gimmicks and skills. There's 25 different elite enemies in the game, and here's a few of them just to demonstrate their capabilities. The Oni is a brute that throws her weapon at you to stun you, buffs her physical damage, and uses her unique skill Strike of Fury to deal heavy physical damage with insane knockback, potentially causing huge collision damage or awkward positioning. The Vampiress has lifesteal on her normal attacks, can summon bats, cast ice magic, and can attempt to revive herself if you don't defeat her with light damage. Priestess is a human that can summon an angel, another elite with an unusually strong ranged attack. She can also heal and buff up all the enemies around her. The Alchemist is an annoying bitch that isn't too dangerous on her own, but has the same problems as spellcasters. She harasses the player at long range, even behind walls, with debuff potions and her little orb friend. She also spams stones of repulsion if you get close, and it's worse than spellcasters because she'll do it even if you're 2 or 3 tiles away, so she pesters you constantly from a distance and is very good at keeping you that way. Dear God, let her only have 1 stone of repulsion max, for my sanity. There's a bunch more elites, and I really enjoy the unique things each bring to the table. There is a notable problem in the balancing, however. Some elites are notoriously more dangerous than others. The Witch and Sage in particular are capable of absolutely murdering you, and often I'd rather just turn around and run away and haul ass rather than deal with their bullshit. Although at the very least, the Sage has a very satisfying death scream. Stupid bitch. Sometimes the game generates an unfairly dense amount of enemies in a room as well. Endgame floors are no stranger to flooding a room with 20 minor enemies and 4 elites, 2 of those being the aforementioned Witch and Sage. Even on assisted difficulty, good luck coming out of that one alive. All of the elites can drop a unique material, which can be used to force craft a weapon based on that elite. Remember how the Oni can smack you against the wall with Strike of Fury? Now you can craft Oni's Kanobo, which has the exact same skill. Now we can talk about the curse part of the game. Literally, it's called Cursed Blacksmith. The Cursed Sword is this game's ultimatum option. You have a stat called Erosion that starts out at 0%. Every few turns spent in the labyrinth will increase it by 1%, and once it maxes out, your health and stamina will stop regenerating, and you'll start losing HP instead. If you lose all your HP, you'll faint, which prompts you to button mash the directional buttons to get back up, unless your erosion is at max, in which case it's game over. Erosion adds some urgency and pressure to exploration. Knowing you have a limited time before you drop dead makes you keep your head up and keep things going. The Cursed Sword offers extremely powerful skills that can wipe the floor with enemies, but instead of costing stamina like regular skills, Cursed skills will increase your erosion by a considerable amount. Cursed Slash is a simple area of effect around you. Cursed Charge lets you jump at a specific position and damage an area around it. Cursed Armament equips the sword as your weapon, granting major buffs and causing your normal attacks to deal huge damage. Cursed Freeze literally stops time. Curse Tempest obliterates everything in a huge area directly in front of you. The power of these skills is based on your curseness stat, which increases gradually as you break stronger weapons, which adds another point to the weapon breaking isn't bad basket. These are all cool abilities, but we have a small problem. Most of these are completely useless. Whenever you get knocked down, getting up will automatically use Cursed Slash, and the erosion penalty is applied as usual. That means there is literally zero reason to ever use Cursed Slash of your own accord, because either A, you could have cleared the encounter without using it and you just eroded yourself for no reason, or B, you would have died without using it, in which case you would have just used it automatically anyway. Situation B is made worse in that you could use Curse Slash, only to die anyway, making you use it twice. When you go down, enemies will automatically gather around you to beat you up, so you can just wait a few seconds before getting up to maximize its effect. If you used it before going down, enemies might not be in range to dispatch all of them at once, which could lead you to dying anyway, leading to the aforementioned double dip. As far as I can tell, the erosion cost is the same regardless, so the obvious solution is to make it cost less to use by choice, so that there's an actual risk assessment. The rest of the curse skills have their own issues. Curse Charge is alright, as it has a lower cost, but also has a smaller area of effect and slightly less damage. Still, it's serviceable when there's a priority target that needs dispatching immediately, and you can aim it within a few tiles of yourself, so it's more flexible. However, I would still never use this skill on its own, simply because the next Cursed Sword skill blows every other one out of the water. Cursed Armament is the best cursed skill, no contest. It has the lowest base erosion cost, usually single digits, and while you do continuously increase in erosion while it's active, it is easily the most efficient. Its only downside is that it costs a turn to activate, but that can be worked around with just a little bit of foresight. While active, your normal attacks deal massive true damage, bypassing resistances. You also get a 40% minimum block rate and a 5% block rate accumulation, so a near permanent 50-50 chance to block any damage, while dealing big damage of your own is pretty good by itself. If that wasn't enough though, you also get complete ailment and knockback immunity. Granted, it doesn't cure ailments you already have, but it's still more icing on the cake, and it's particularly useful if there's an ailment you want to avoid. Say, a witch is charging their confusion spell from hell and you want to avoid that. If there's a nearby elite that needs immediate dispatch, you can knock them out with 1 or 2 Cursed Armament swings for a much lower cost than Cursed Slash or Cursed Charge. But wait, there's more. The real power of the skill comes with Armament Finisher, which allows you to use Omega versions of the other curse skills while Armament is active. The Omega versions deal increased damage, have extra range, and cost less erosion than their original counterparts, with the added bonus of decreasing in cost the longer you stay in Cursed Armament. Using an Omega will end Armament, but you'll more than likely obliterate everything in a 10-mile radius anyway. In the endgame, you can literally pop Cursed Armament followed by Omega Cursed Charge to obliterate everything in a huge radius at a distance for like 10 erosion, whereas regular Cursed Slash, which is weaker, would probably cost you like 20, with the only downside being the extra turn cost, which again isn't really that bad.
Yes!
The decreasing erosion cost also means you can spend a few turns in Cursed Armament, whack a few enemies, and end it off with an Omega for basically no extra cost. Speaking of ending it off, one more note is that while it does cost 1 turn to turn on, canceling Cursed Armament is free and does not consume a turn. I guess I should mention Cursed Freeze is also available in Cursed Armament, but I have literally never used this skill a single time. Being able to stop time is cool, but it has a really high upfront cost and exponential maintenance cost. I'd rather just pop a haste potion or invisibility potion, or just use Omega Curse Charge, which costs less, saves my can, and eliminates everything in a 5-mile radius. Considering how absolutely loaded Cursed Armament already is, I'm not too concerned about this one being a bust. You also unlock Cursed Tempest at the tail end of the game. If Cursed Slash is a pipe bomb, then Cursed Tempest is a roll of high-yield trinitritoluene taped together. It attacks 3 times in a massive area in front of you, and of course it has an Omega version, just because Cursed Armament still isn't strong enough. This is the absolute most powerful Cursed Sword skill, and also the most expensive, costing much more than Cursed Slash would. It has its uses, namely for when you encounter a large mob of dangerous enemies that are scattered in a way that would make Omega Curse Charge ineffective. Overall, the Cursed Sword is a great system on paper and a great emergency system that offers an engaging dilemma of either playing it safe or taking a risk of greater failure without it. Although said dilemma really only comes into play when the player unlocks Cursed Armament and Armament Finisher, and the balancing feels shaky because of it. Cursed Slash is literally pointless to use deliberately, Cursed Charge is okay, Cursed Tempest is great, but locked until the endgame, and even then, Cursed Armament and Finisher completely invalidate it, as well as the rest of the default Cursed skills in every conceivable fashion, unless you're in some extremely unlikely dilemma where you need to do it in exactly one turn. While yes, Cursed Armament is slightly overtuned, I think the bigger issue is that the rest of the Cursed skills simply can't compete. I think decreasing the base cost of the default skills across the board would be healthy, and making Cursed Slash more expensive when used automatically on Revival compared to using it on your own. This would add actual risk assessment, since going down would be more punishing than sacrificing a bit of erosion to do a Cursed Slash, Charge, or even Tempest. As much as it pains me to say, Cursed Armament is probably due a small nerf. I think the gradually decreasing erosion cost for the Omega skills can go, as the decreased base cost and buff variance is enough of a boon already. I also think the free Super Armor, Block Rate, and Ailment Immunity is kinda cheesy. Since the activation cost of Armament is so low, literally 1 erosion with enough upgrades, you can pop Cursed Armament as a 1-turn super potion to completely shunt knockback and status ailments and gain a pretty good chance to negate damage for almost nothing, and then cancel it the next turn without actually taking up said turn. I'm unsure whether or not this actually needs removal though, as it does feel as if it would be incomplete or missing something without it, but the other half of me is nagging overpowered. Enough droning on about the Cursed Sword, let's talk dungeon crawling. The Labyrinth is the big dungeon you'll be spending most of your time in. It's sort of like Tartarus or Mementos from the Persona games, and that is this huge multi-floored randomly generated maze, cut into 6 different sections, each having their own enemy composition, aesthetic, and boss. Most of the game will have you traverse 4 to 8 floors, hit a checkpoint, then traverse another set of floors until you reach a boss. Once you've defeated a boss, you can start your exploration of the labyrinth from that floor, so you don't need to tread the whole thing in one go. The randomly generated floors in this game are basic. They're just squares connected via long hallways. They don't evolve too much over the game besides getting larger, but one section does coat the area in heavy fog, which impairs both you and the enemy's vision. Later in the game, the gameplay structure changes significantly, requiring the player to go down several sub-paths before continuing down the main path, which is really cool and I wish the game had more of that. That's about it though for variation, and I kind of wish each section had more to offer besides different enemies and atmosphere. While the general loop of the labyrinth doesn't change much, there is a lot of inherent randomness within the labyrinth that does keep things fresh, though sometimes this randomness can be a bit bullshit. For starters, there's 2 random floor modifiers that can happen anytime you move to a new floor. The first is the dangerous floor, which has drastically increased enemy density. No problems with this one, as it's a good opportunity to farm a lot of souls, and the increased danger isn't so grand as to dead stop your exploration. The same cannot be said for distorted floors. I'm going to be blunt. Fuck these, dude. If I could nerf or outright remove one thing in this game, it would be these. The gimmick here is that all of the walls on the floor disappear. Sounds harmless enough, right? But for some reason, every single enemy on the entire fucking floor will aggro you. So you have nowhere to take cover, and like 10 or more elites and dozens of lesser enemies all converging on your position simultaneously. Needless to say, this is an overwhelmingly bad situation that will likely see you have to use cursed sword skills multiple times or just outright kill you. Even when I played assisted difficulty, getting out of this in one piece came down to pure luck. If you're playing normal or god forbid hardcore, your only hope is that the exit portal is right fucking next to you when you spawn, or you have an invisibility potion or something to just waltz over to it. I can't fucking stand these floors. It's a giant middle finger that comes out of nowhere, and the only solution is praying to RNGesus or having a preemptive invisibility potion at all times. Enemies aggroing you from a long range? Okay, fair enough, but the entire room is absolute bullshit. This is one of the rare few things in the game I think is actually terrible. It 100% needs toning down, and the easiest way to do that is to shrink the aggro range of enemies to on-screen only and not the entire room. Okay. Each room can be filled with random magic circles and or traps. Oh boy, these things are a mixed bag. I do like the idea, and I think the game would be lacking without them. They keep you on your toes and can throw a wrench into your plans, requiring you to adapt quickly or change up your battle plan, rather than just killing everything the same way in every room. Likewise, they can also help you immensely and be a pleasant surprise, saving you from an unfavorable situation. However, depending on how RNG is feeling, you can get completely destroyed by a very unfortunate arrangement of traps that chain into each other. One time, I hit a gust trap, which knocked me into a wall, followed by landing on an explosion trap, which knocked me into the wall again, and then I ended it by landing on a boulder trap, which was enough to down me instantly from full health. I literally got insta-killed in one turn and there was no way to see it coming. This is an extremely unlikely circumstance and I just pulled a short straw, but the fact it's possible is kind of ridiculous. While a scenario like the one I just described is rare, what isn't rare is a select few traps that are just either plain stupid or outright instant game enders. The weapon break trap is extremely annoying. While breaking weapons is part of the flow and to be expected, it's your choice to use said weapon and break it, and you at least get to use it a good deal before having to part ways with it, or you could save it and get it repaired later. I love putting the finishing touches on a nicely optimized weapon with 200 durability, only to step on a weapon break trap and lose it instantly. There's already a weapon durability down trap, why is there a duplicate that does the same thing but even worse? The distort trap, because running into one of these rooms at the start isn't bad enough, you can also run into a trap that changes the room into one. I hope you cleared most of the mobs before you touched it, otherwise you'll run into the exact same problems it normally has. The erosion trap. It's not that bad, definitely not a game ender, but every time I step on one, I immediately think, are you fucking serious right now? And then there's the death trap. I suppose now is as good of a time as any to explain the Reaper. Once you reach Chapter 4, not only is there the problem of your ever-increasing erosion, but also the threat of the Reaper. Imagine the Reaper from Persona, but now it's a hot anime girl. That's literally what it is. If you spend too long in one area, the Reaper will eventually spawn and you'll be in a shitload of trouble. She puts a 30-turn death mark on you that, if you let expire, will result in your immediate death. And I don't just mean going down, I mean full erosion insta-kill. The only real escape from the Reaper is going down to another floor. Killing her is possible, but it will likely take a lot of cursed armament swings to dispatch her, because she is super resistant to all other damage types. Even then, this is only a temporary reprieve, as she will just reappear over and over until you actually leave. Not gonna lie, don't really see the point of her when the passive erosion increase is pressure enough to keep things moving. She is pretty intimidating and a good scare though, so who cares. Also, she's hot. Thankfully, she only appears in randomly generated areas, not things like outposts or giant open areas. Not to mention, the only time she would realistically appear is when you're combing out entire floors or backtracking repeatedly, so you'll usually have found the exit by the time she appears, or can find it quickly thereafter. This means her disruption is rather minimal, unless you step on the death trap, and everything I just said gets thrown out the fucking window. If you haven't found the exit, haven't cleared a good portion of the floor, and just so happen to step on a death trap, congratulations, your run is very likely over unless you manage to find the exit in the next 30 seconds. Or, well, 30 turns in this game's case. Fuck the death traps. If it just accelerated or shortened her arrival a bit, fine by me, but no, it makes her spawn almost instantly. There are ways to get around traps, to be fair. You can unlock Perception, which gives you a chance to reveal hidden traps and circles around you. There's also accessories that boost Perception, or block undiscovered traps. Not to mention, a few traps are already revealed, with these markings on the floor, but some of them are just completely invisible. I still don't like this though, because it's the same problem as distorted rooms where the counterplay is keeping a preemptive solution on the off chance it happens. It's one thing to plan for a fixed event, like optimizing for a boss fight or building your weapons to be flexible, and it's another thing to have to prematurely keep one or two specific items just in case the extremely unfavorable bad RNG happens. That's like playing FCP Secret Laboratory and looking at the floor 24/7, just in case you run into SCP-096, which may or may not happen, but if you don't play it safe, you could just get a near guaranteed death because you got blindsided. Getting back on track to the good stuff, a short ways into the game you'll start coming across these big glowing green portals. These transport you to a huge open area. These are fixed, handcrafted sections with multiple paths and tons of collectibles scattered around. I love these sections so much more than the randomly generated floors, and I wish the game had some more of them, though I feel their scarcity is also part of their value. The regular floors are serviceable enough, but going through these vast spaces really immerses me into the dungeon crawling. Though the enemy composition and structure is fixed, that handcrafted aspect often presents more engaging scenarios than the bland square rooms that you're accustomed to. There's always several accessory chests and permanent upgrade items scattered around as well, often requiring specific items or skills to reach, or otherwise keen eyes. You're encouraged to, and rewarded for, exploring this space thoroughly. While in normal floors, you often just want to find the exit portal as fast as humanly possible. It evolves further later in the game, where progression through the labyrinth requires the player to find something specific within these spaces in order to move on, instead of just moving straight forward to the boss. I think the tail end of the game is where Cursed Blacksmith is at its strongest, as the last couple of chapters have incredibly compelling atmosphere backed up by a buffet of these open spaces, beckoning to be explored. It makes me curious what the game would be like if the last 2 chapters' structure was applied to the whole game. But just because the game saves the best for last, it doesn't mean that the rest of the game before it is worth any less. You may have heard me mention permanent upgrade items a few seconds ago. This is where the roguelite elements come in. There are 2 primary meta-progression elements within the game. The biggest ones are the soul imprints. The first character you meet, Doriel, offers you permanent upgrades in exchange for large amounts of soul. These range from improvements to your recovery rate, decreased passive erosion speed, decreased cursed sword cost, more carrying capacity, to entirely new abilities or mechanics, like being able to use 4 or even 5 materials in weapon forging, new cursed sword skills, throwing materials and weapons, precision throwing at any specific tile for the cost of stamina, quick switch to multiple pieces of gear in one turn, a preview of possible forging results, and the ability to pick a specific weapon from said preview of forging, among others. The unlockable abilities really help flesh out the game and keep things fresh, without overwhelming new players just starting with an abundance of options. Forging weapons starts off simple. You pick 3 materials, maybe add an enhancement or 2, and that's it. Then you unlock Material Exceed, letting you use up to 4, later 5, materials versus 3. And while that sounds like a direct upgrade, the cost for that 1 extra material is very high. So it's still more economical to use the standard 3 materials unless you have the souls to spare or really need the increased weapon power. The rest of the smithing unlocks are either very niche or borderline wasteful. Simple forging lets you forge with less than 3 materials. The only use I could find for this was creating an elite weapon that takes up 1 weight, which I would level up the unique skill on, then break to get a high level skill scrap, though just making it a regular weapon would probably still be better, since it would have more damage to put on whatever I decide to use the scrap for. High class forging lets you increase the tenacity and magic of the resulting weapon, so it's stronger and you have a better chance of getting weapons that require high tenacity or magic. I've literally never used this because it's really fucking expensive, and I'd rather just use Material Exceed instead, and in that case I can use Precise Forging if I'm aiming for a specific weapon. Speaking of which, Precise Forging is exactly what I said. You pick a weapon from the Forging Forecast, which is also something you unlock beforehand. It is also extremely expensive and penalizes the weapon a bit, so its only real use is for when you're desperately trying to forge a specific weapon. Low class forging is the same thing, but the other way around. Though it doesn't actually weaken your weapon, it just gives you better odds of a lower end weapon, which sounds oxymoronic, I know. It actually took me forever to figure out what the fuck this thing does, and in the end, it doesn't really matter anyway, because like with high class forging, I've never used this in my entire life. Maybe if you want the skill of a weaker weapon with the stats of a stronger one, that's the kind of thing this is meant for, but I still don't really get why you would want to use this. Anyway, this is supposed to be a section on meta progression, not a sequel to the galaxy-sized sandbox monologue. With everything I just mentioned taken into consideration though, that galaxy has grown to the size of the observable universe. The real curse of this game is the endless void that is the intricacies of its crafting system. The second type of meta progression are the upgrade souls. I don't know what to call them really. Soul drop is the name of an item, so that's off the table, and souls are just the game's currency, so I have to make something up to distinguish them, so upgrade souls it is. Every once in a while, killing enemies will cause an upgrade soul to pop out. Collecting it will provide a boost to your HP, SP, erosion limit, or inventory space. Despite being an item, they do not disappear, so they are permanent upgrades. You can also find upgrade souls scattered in outposts and the big open spaces. I really need a better term for the latter, but I can't think of anything. It's a pretty satisfying meta progression system. There's nothing I love more than starting at a squeamish 100 HP, and then by the end of the game I realize, holy shit, I have 400 now? Cursed Blacksmith is a very hard, very unforgiving game. Thankfully, the devs have blessed us with several difficulty options for us to pick from. For those just starting out with the game, I would highly recommend you pick Assisted. This is basically the game's easy mode. You get a massive HP boost of 100, slower erosion speed, and decreased enemy HP. I normally find easy difficulties a bit demeaning, but given how ruthless this game can be, I don't think picking Assisted for starters is a bad thing. Most of its bonuses are very front-loaded anyway. That 100 HP bonus loses a lot of value by the time you reach the endgame, when you would have had 400 already. The training wheels help ease the learning pain at the start of the game, and start to come off in the second half. It's still easier than normal mode, but some challenge comes back to you as you progress, and I think that's a pretty smart way to do an easy mode, even if this wasn't actually intentional. Normal mode is, well, normal mode, what can I say? If you're experienced with Mystery Dungeon games or have a degree of confidence, then playing on normal is good. Just expect some resistance at the start. There's also casual mode, which I would never recommend to anyone. This is the I bought the game for the plot option. Does anyone ever actually play on this kind of difficulty? At that point, you might as well just watch a YouTube Let's Play because there's no stakes. And then there's hardcore mode. And as someone who likes to play games on the highest difficulty, I was pleasantly surprised how fun this was. After beating the game unassisted, I immediately jumped into hardcore mode to test my mettle. And damn, this is a good hard mode. You have the usual hard mode shit of increased enemy HP and damage, but this game actually puts in the effort to make hard mode a unique and interesting experience. For starters, you have a decrease to your HP and SP regeneration. This fucking hurts in the early game. It's so fucking slow, and finding ways to increase it is basically mandatory, unless you want to waste time pacing to restore it, in which case, your erosion is going to go up fast. The Vitality Ring is an S-tier accessory in this mode, that's for sure. You also have a penalty to your block rate accumulation. This is a big game changer, as many weapons will be unable to accumulate block rate, or even go backwards and accumulate negatively instead. So things like focus potions or other boosts to block rate become really good, and you'll be taking a lot more hits as a result. Tougher hits at that. The real flagship feature of hardcore is the fatigue system. Whenever you use a skill, it will enter the fatigue state for several turns. Trying to use a fatigued skill will cost you twice as much SP, as well as decrease durability by a shit ton depending on how recently the skill was used. This system is awesome, and it greatly alters the way you approach the game. In lower difficulties, it's super easy to build a weapon with 1 or 2 super powerful skills and spam the shit out of them until the cows come home. That does not work in hardcore. Building weapons and accessories with a wide array of skills becomes priority 1, especially in boss fights that demand high mobility, since you can't just rely on one single movement skill. However, it doesn't outright block skill usage, so in emergencies, you can still repeatedly use the same skill if it would cover your ass. It's a really interesting system, and I had a great time working my way around it. Lastly, there's the resistances. Enemies' elemental resistances are multiplied. On lower difficulties, it's not too big a deal if you attack an enemy with a weapon they resist. It might take an extra swing or two, but it's manageable. On hardcore though, attacking an enemy, or god forbid an elite, with the wrong weapon could see you having to hit them over and over and over and over, sometimes 10 or more times, just to kill them. Combine that with the increased enemy attack and HP, and exploiting weaknesses is no longer optional. It is mandatory, unless you want to end up on the floor because you thought attacking slimes with water damage was a smart idea. It's things like this though that make me wish the game had an in-game bestiary, because trying to remember the affinities of every single enemy I come across is really fucking hard, especially since it's not always obvious at a glance what they're weak or resistant to. What do you think this enemy is weak to? It has lifesteal, which is like dark magic type shit, right? So surely it's weak to light. Wrong. Fire, wind, and water. Eat shit. Cursed skills, and by that I mean cursed armament and armament finisher, are always there for you though if you need it. Overall, I absolutely recommend hardcore mode for a second playthrough. Definitely not for a first, unless you're a masochist, you hate yourself, and you want to spend more time on your first playthrough of this game than you did Persona 5. A couple of quality of life things before we move on to the story though. For starters, this game has a lot of menuing. Some people might find that frustrating, and even I felt a bit slowed down by it at first. There's not too much you can do about that though, but when you get experience with the game, it's not a big deal. Though I do think something like a quick select menu for weapons would really go a long way. I mentioned a while ago that human and demon enemies will fight each other. What I didn't mention though is how goddamn slow that is sometimes. If there's a large number of them fighting, especially magic casting ones, they can take fucking forever to finish their animations. You'll be walking around minding your own business when suddenly a riot breaks out in a nearby room. You take one step, wait 10 seconds for enemies to punch each other, one by one, slowly, and repeat until they're off screen or dead. Thankfully, the devs thought of this, and there are 2 things in this game that help immensely keep the flow up. In the settings menu, you can adjust animation speed for all foes. I highly recommend turning normal enemies to 1.5x or even 2x speed. You'll thank me later. The second thing is the godsend that is the speed up button. You can press this at any time to massively speed up the game. This works on anything, being it walking, animations, cutscenes, dialogue, whatever. It's cool to watch Protag forge a weapon the first 100 times, but after 2000 it starts getting old, so I'm glad I can just skip it and get back to the game instantly. Just be careful if you're using a controller though. You could accidentally press the speed up button in the middle of dialogue and skip a shit ton of it. I did that several times during these recordings with my PS3 controller. Now it's time for me to move on to the story. Don't worry, there's no major spoilers here, but if everything about the gameplay I just described sounds like a good time, then pick up the game and go in full blind. There's a free demo too, so it's not like it's going to cost you anything. By the way, if I sound different randomly, that's because I'm recording this in multiple sessions. Because reading 25,000 words in one sitting is a perfect way to destroy my voice for my entire life. If I had to summarize my opinions on the story, it has a good initial hook, but can sometimes feel a bit dull or like it's not really going anywhere, before going all in for the last act. The game takes place in this strange reality that everyone only refers to as this world in quotation marks. I don't really know why it's always in quotes and capitals. It comes off as unnatural to me, and I think the script would flow better without it, but that could just be a translation problem or autism brain speaking. I think the story is a good subversion on a stereotypical fantasy world plot, and the mystery and love story elements it harbors made it feel worthwhile. The nature of this world is completely unknown. You're given a short monologue from an unknown character talking about experiencing their story in pain, before hearing the sound of something being presumably stabbed, only to be immediately thrown into this bizarre crimson cavern-looking area where the game starts its tutorial. This tutorial and intro sequence are really good, by the way. It's concise and it teaches the players the basics very efficiently, all while being diegetic to the game. The environment, subtle background music, and unobtrusive tutorial got me invested and immersed right away. After completing said tutorial dungeon, or dying in it, you awake in the safe house, where the game's poster character Doriel introduces herself as the player's guide, with the mission of aiding Protag's quest to reach the end of the labyrinth and save him from total erosion. And then the game just begins there with barely no exposition. Enter the labyrinth a few times, upgrade yourself a bit, eventually defeat a boss, and bring back the rescued girl to the safe house. Repeat. That's the loop for the game for the most part. The real meat of the story and lore comes from the memories, which are obtained in the same way as soul upgrades. Enemies may randomly unlock memories for you, or they can be found spread across the world. Each of the elite enemies also have one memory unique to them. These are the big pieces of flavor text, and to be honest, while I do like reading some of them, I look at many of them and think,
wow, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
For the sake of thoroughness though, I did go through and read every single memory in the game. They're pretty good. I think someone who actually likes to read flavor text will appreciate the world building it offers. Although for someone like me who hates reading lots of words, it was kind of a chore. Probably not something I'd like to do in the middle of playing. Sometimes it's hard to tell who exactly is talking in some of these. I'm quite used to reading things like SCP articles where transcripts of audio have the speaker's name, so there's no mistaking things. This isn't really the fault of the game though, this is just a problem shared by all literature. Take that, boomers. This is why we don't like reading books. Last stop of the spoiler-free section, I'd like to take a brief moment to talk about this game's general presentation. It is an RPG Maker game, so there's the usual stock RPG Maker assets and sounds in there somewhere, but in a vacuum, the game looks and sounds really good. The UI in particular appeals to me a lot. All of the NPC portraits are animated as well, and this really brings them to life with their gestures and facial expressions that bring out their personalities. Though there's a few instances where it looks kind of uncanny, looking at you, Skewer. There's also a handful of fully rendered animated CGs as well, and a great deal of sketches, mostly related to the memories. Some of these are really gorgeous, with shoutouts going to the one with Shinoa. God damn, that's some beautiful composition right there. The sound design is crisp. Even with a lot of stock sounds in the mix, the way they're utilized and combined add a satisfying punch to everything, from UI navigation, attacking, skills, to making the curse sword sound badass. Even just making weapons is really satisfying. The game's main cast is also fully voiced, every single line of dialogue being spoken, with the actors doing a pretty good job for what I assume to just be hobbyists. We're talking potentially thousands of lines of speaking, which is pretty rare for an indie project. One problem I do have though is that this game has a mild case of so many two sounds. What's that? You didn't hear a word I just said? Exactly. If there's particularly loud music playing and a character is speaking low or whispering, they're basically completely inaudible. This is at default audio settings too, mind you. I'm unsure if RPG Maker lets you do any kind of audio ducking, but something to alleviate this in these mild instances would be appreciated. The game also has a great choice of music. Most of this is pre-composed royalty-free music, but there's nothing wrong with that. If you think it fits your atmosphere, use whatever the hell music you want. I come from a Team Fortress 2 community that uses songs from all kinds of places for their maps, so I'm quite used to the idea of repurposing music. Even so, there are a few songs composed specifically for this game, and they even have a central motif. Listen to the game's title theme, and then pay attention later in the game, and you'll see what I mean. And with that, almost 10,000 words into the script, and we are finally at the point of no return. From here on out, I will be giving full spoilers for the entirety of this game. If everything else hasn't convinced you that this game is worth your time, then I'm not sure what else would. I'd still recommend you try the demo though. Regardless, it's time to take a deep dive into the full extent of the game's world and plot. For those who've already experienced the game, and those who don't care to, but are still curious, let's proceed. We've already established the basics. The world we are in, which everyone simply refers to as this world, is definitely not the normal reality. There's a mysterious labyrinth filled with countless foes, a cursed sword of unknown origin, and Doriel, the guide who seems to know much but tells little. As you piece together the information found within the memories found throughout the labyrinth, you'll likely notice a few crucial details. There's mentions of an expedition and a great war between humans and demons, a mighty hero of the humans said to be unstoppable, a traitor of the humans that has caused immeasurable damage to the world, and a great disaster or calamity so grand it somehow stirred humans and demons to band together. Defeating the bosses of the labyrinth will free a girl each time. The first is Retzia, a holy knight of the church, steadfast in her beliefs to save people and do the right thing. She recognizes the cursed sword but can't recall any details or provide any information. Skewer is a former bandit turned treasure hunter, and unfortunately she also has barely anything to add besides her mischievous antics. Shinoa is an energetic blacksmith who calls herself Big Sister or One-chan. She also recognizes the cursed sword, saying that she has polished and maintained it many times, but she also can't recall its exact origin. She does spark the memory of Retzia, however, who says that the sword belonged to her superior, a woman whom she can't remember the face or name of, much to her dismay. Then there's Stanga, an elite in the demon army, stone cold and dismissive of everyone in their optimistic attitudes. She drops the first real bombshell of the game, that everyone present in this world has experienced death before, establishing this world as some sort of purgatory realm. And lastly, there is Noxel, the demon lord herself, a curious and rather playful soul. Once she arrives, she finally brings all the answers to the table. I will combine the contents of her testimony with the knowledge provided in the memories and give you a rough outline of this game's entire story. In the real world, the human and demon races have always been at war. Other races, such as the elves, exist, but they live in isolation while the humans and demons continuously fight for control of the continent. This war has been a stalemate for what is presumably a very, very long time. Everything changed with the events that occurred in a valley near a small mining town. The demons are planning to launch a surprise assault from the valley and start amassing a very large force. This could easily turn the war in their favor if it was a successful ambush. However, their plans would not succeed thanks to the quick thinking and rather reckless behavior of one human, a girl named Clarice Azrahart. Clarice had been training in swordsmanship and combat from a very young age, born to a noble family. To honor their name, she enlists in the army, and as fate would have it, this pure soul was caught right in the middle of the scheme to annihilate the valley. Intelligence relays to Clarice's unit about the demon attack. Clarice's superiors order her and her team to use the mining town as a stalling point, buying time to fortify behind it. This would obviously result in countless casualties of civilian lives. Despite the potential consequences of insubordination, Clarice refused to let something like this happen, and she hatched a plan of her own instead. She ordered her squadron to bring out every explosive they had in their storage. They then laid these explosives throughout the valley, setting up a huge trap. She and her unit then ambushed the demon force, enraging them and coaxing them to follow. The explosives are all set off, and a majority of the demon army is destroyed by the explosions and resulting rock slides, forcing them all into a disastrous retreat. This feat earns Clarice considerable renown in the mining town, with the townsfolk proclaiming her as a hero. But, as humans love to do, their praise quickly gets blown out of proportion. Word of her victory spreads throughout the human kingdom like wildfire, and the simple plan of blowing up a valley is somehow exaggerated into Clarice having divine power, using it to summon mighty lightning bolts, coating the entire valley in bright light. One hell of a tall tale if you ask me. Word of this makes it to the capital, and Clarice, expecting to be court-martialed or sanctioned for her disobeying orders, is instead surprised by the kingdom's open arms, brandishing the title of hero upon her. Her fame and glory cause morale throughout the entire kingdom to reach an all-time high, and it all comes to a peak when the Human King decrees that a massive expedition army will be created, with the plan to all-out assault the demon realm and kill the demon lord, ending the war once and for all. This expedition amasses people from all over, from enlisted soldiers to mercenaries to altruistic civilians who want to make a difference. Some of the people in this expedition are of questionable character, potentially only in it for themselves, seeking thrill or loot. Before the expedition sets off, a gathering of nobles holding a banquet in Clarice's honor is crashed by Stanga. Clarice quickly arrives on scene, but Stanga only leaves her a few words before disappearing quickly.
なあ勇者様よ。他人の目に映る貴様が果たしてまだ人間のままなのかな?
She had no idea why the demon said something like that, but this one single sentence sowed the seeds of doubt in her heart. Holy shit, that's a tongue twister. As Clarice prepares to depart, she pays a visit to a childhood friend, a blacksmith she had been visiting and training with since they were kids. This blacksmith gives her a parting gift, a custom-made sword just for her. This sword becomes her most treasured possession. She uses it endlessly throughout the expedition, slaying countless foes. Anytime she feels exhausted or senses her resolve wavering, all she need do is to look at her reflection in the blade to remember everything she's fighting for. No matter all the pain or how much blood spatters onto her, everything would be worth it. Along the way, she meets many people. A holy knight who seeks to learn from her and follows closely, and a blacksmith who takes great care of her blade. Not everything is all sunshine and roses. At one point, she comes across a girl with cat ears, crying and mourning over a human. The cat girl notices her and draws a knife before staring at Clarice in fear. Neither of them do anything besides gaze at each other for a very long time, before the cat girl eventually gets up and flees in a panic. Throughout the whole expedition, she bears witness to endless suffering. Demons who can't fight back being tortured and played with, slaughtered like animals. Clarice turns a blind eye to all of this, trying her best to stay focused on what matters, the Demon Lord herself. The expedition carves through the demon territory, quickly paving a path to the demon capital, where the Demon Lord herself resides. The hardships she had experienced up to this point have been immeasurable. She had risked her life in the valley with the bombardment plot. She was given the title of hero and felt the heavy weight that such a title places on her, showered in compliments and praises, and drenched in others' doubts. She journeyed across the continent, killing countless numbers of foes, with the expedition moving at such speed that barely anyone, including herself, could really rest. She witnessed brutality towards the demons, and the doubts that were planted by Stanga's question continuously grow as she journeys. At least with the sword given to her, she believes she can keep going, and that she can save the world. The assault on the demon capital begins, and Clarice sneaks into the castle with the help of Rezia, who distracts Stanga and allows her to slip away and sneak in with another unit. Inside, she finally makes contact with Noxel herself, and despite the grand power the Demon Lord supposedly has, Clarice, against all odds, lands a decisive blow, plunging her treasured sword directly through Noxel's body. She couldn't believe it. It was over. The expedition is over. The war is over. With the Demon Lord deceased, peace is guaranteed across the continent. Clarice, drenched in crimson, is given the long-awaited victory she had been suffering for. But that victory was to be very short-lived. Exiting the castle, she bore witness to an unthinkable scene. Human soldiers, the ones she was supposed to be fighting for, laying her life on the line for, were fighting and slaying each other in the streets. A few soldiers surround her, spouting something about the hero dying so that her legend can live on forever. And that scene was the straw that broke the camel's back. Everything all began coming out. She thought there would be peace. But here she is, questioning. What was the point? Killing all those demons, only for humans to start killing themselves instead. What's the meaning of it? What's the meaning of anything? The priceless sword in her hands, coated in the blood of all of her enemies, was now too stained for her to see her reflection. Now, there's nothing to see at all. Clarice's emotions spiral out of control rapidly, the intensity of which draws the power of the deceased Demon Lord, the crown, directly to her. The Demon Lord's power was something passed down for generations. Each successive lord inherited the crown, along with the power it contained, the magic of all the former lords who donned it. It was such a strong power that even Noxel herself opted to store it within her body instead, as its strength was something nobody could bear for too long. And now, that same power belongs to Clarice, a regular human, maybe a hero to some people, but in reality, she's just a normal girl. A girl who got lucky with her ingenious plan to bombard a valley, lucky to survive and make it all the way to the capital, and lucky enough to win against the Demon Lord, as impossible as it may have been. Clarice's outburst of despair, combined with the forbidden power of the crown, transformed Clarice into the new Demon Lord, a being with a broken mind, hell-bent on only one thing: destruction. She begins a never-ending rampage across the continent, killing everything, be it human, demon, elf, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered, so everything should be destroyed. Her pain manifests as the erosion, a black and red liquid that corrodes and saps the life out of anything it comes in contact with. The erosion saturates everywhere she goes, and her sword, once glowing bright with azure light, is made a dark crimson, radiating only with anger and despair. The events at the capital spread quickly, and the few demons and humans lucky enough to survive band together without hesitation, dropping all their differences to face this new threat that would annihilate all of them. But not even the entire world combined was enough to stop Clarice. Nothing can stop her. She will continue to erode the world until absolutely nothing is left. So now the question is, where the hell does the game come into play? Upon inheriting the crown's power, Clarice subconsciously creates a purgatory realm within her own heart. If the Persona 5 inspiration wasn't obvious enough with the shadow enemies, then this, and the final area of the game, will make it pretty obvious. Not that I'm complaining, of course. This world is where all of those who are killed by Clarice, or taken by the erosion, are sent to, trapped in the labyrinth, a place that breaks down their mind, leaving them with nothing to do but fight, die, and rebirth in a meaningless cycle of pain and suffering. The same way Clarice sees the world. Except for one person, Protag Man, the Blacksmith. And it's pretty obvious why if you heard all this talk about Clarice's sword earlier. Our character is the person who made the cursed sword, although that's not its actual name. That's just a name that Shinoa came up with on the spot. In actuality, it is named after Clarice's family, Azrahart, the Shimmering Sword. Though in its current state, it does quite the opposite of shimmering. Clarice and the Blacksmith have known each other since childhood. One day, Clarice decided to go sneaking around the outside of her usual streets, crowded with the insufferable nobles. She comes across a blacksmith shop and meets Protag there, practicing sword swings. By the way, his canon name is Lou if you care about that, but I'm just going to call him Protag Man because it's funny. Clarice quickly gets attached, finding his demeanor refreshing compared to the arrogance of the nobles, and watching his work is very satisfying. She even gives him a birthday, since he, somehow, doesn't have one. I get they're a commoner, but seriously, they don't even know their birthday? Clarice gives him a necklace as a gift, which is the old necklace accessory you can find every time you wake up in the safe house. The smith promises to give her a gift in return in the future. Though the sense of time in these memories is vague, that gift would likely turn out to be the sword Azrahart, forged just for Clarice. If it wasn't clear already, Clarice is 100% in love with Protag. This is what I meant a while ago when I mentioned there being love story elements, and I think this is the most compelling part of it. It's a true OTP, and I 100% ship it. Unfortunately, the blacksmith was not able to accompany Clarice on the expedition. Quite a fatal mistake. He gave her the sword Azrahart as a parting gift, and that was the last they ever saw of each other until her transformation in the demon capital. Protag quickly learns of the situation and arms himself up, joining the fight. Since the game takes place inside the purgatory world from the beginning, you can imagine how this panned out. Though her mind is in shambles, Clarice can still clearly remember one thing, and one thing only, the sword in her hands, and the person that gave it to her. She inevitably kills the blacksmith by her own hand, but for some reason, he is also the only one able to keep his faculties intact while exploring the labyrinth. He also has possession of the cursed sword. Why is that? The final pieces of the puzzle come together when Doriel's true nature is revealed to us. Doriel is basically a fragment of Clarice's consciousness. She was created alongside this world by the small part of Clarice that, despite everything, still clung on to the faintest glimmer of hope. She was created with the mission to guide the blacksmith to the end of the labyrinth so that he and Clarice may meet once more. To that end, he was also given the cursed sword to aid him in his journey, along with immunity to the labyrinth's mind-rending effects. Doriel's design and mannerisms are actually inspired by what Clarice thinks the blacksmith would like most. In one of the memories, she thinks about what kind of girl he likes, namely those in storybooks. Cute white dress, being soft-spoken, good manners, tying her hair into 2 ribbons, and showing skin. All of these perfectly describe Doriel, so it's nice that her design actually has purpose besides just being another archetype of girl to look at. Back to Clarice though, giving the cursed sword to Protag was not entirely a pure heart. Just as the hopeful side of Clarice believes the cursed sword will genuinely help him, the defeated Clarice is eager to see it eat away at him instead. The hopeful Clarice wants the blacksmith to save her and the souls trapped within. The other Clarice wants to kill him once more, taking everything away again and forcing him to endlessly repeat the loop until he is broken, so that he may understand exactly how she feels. I find this sort of tragedy to be very compelling. Whenever we are in pain or feeling despair, it's expected that we will lean on those we love for their support. Clarice unfortunately did not have this luxury. Though she had the support of the masses, it wasn't the kind of support she was actually needing most. It's understandable for us to want our most important person to know how we feel, but this is a consensual process done through talking, compassion, and mutual understanding. Clarice's broken mental state makes her do this destructively, forcing the blacksmith to experience her pain, her sorrows, her story. That's the opening line of the game, said to the blacksmith just before being stabbed in the real world. I do love it when things come full circle. And that just about does it for the story before the game. I may have overcomplicated or over-dramatized it, but I think it works. The hero becoming the villain may not be the most unique thing in the world, but the relationship between her and the blacksmith, the real hero of the story, really creates a compelling dynamic, and I would have loved to see their relationship explored further. When it comes to criticisms, I will say the story has a big reliance on telling, not showing. Almost everything we learn is either through reading memories or listening to accounts of the main cast, most notably Noxel's massive truth bomb. I actually never knew about Clarice or the hero until that point, as I was too distracted by everything else to really take in the details, and also I don't like reading. We never get to see Clarice killing the main cast or anyone for that matter in the real world. All we can do is read about it in the End of the Road memories. Most importantly though, is that we never actually get to see Clarice's transformation into the new Demon Lord. This is a huge, huge misstep, and I think being able to see this big twist revealed in a fully produced in-game cutscene, even with the limits of RPG Maker, would leave a massive impression. Hell, anything like this would be very helpful in getting players emotionally invested. Perhaps some kind of special statues or something in each of the big open spaces that lets players experience memories from Clarice's perspective. Something that gives some essential details to players who aren't too interested in large amounts of reading. The memories could be hazy or blurry, hiding things like names or people to avoid giving too much information early on. A few things come to mind that seem like good candidates, in no particular order, are Clarice receiving the sword Azurheart from the blacksmith. This is actually shown in the game at some point, but that's for later. Clarice and Shinoa talking about said sword and how with it Clarice can do anything. Clarice's plan to bomb the valley to stop the demon ambush. Clarice meeting the blacksmith for the first time. Clarice celebrating the blacksmith's birthday and gifting the necklace. Clarice seeing the devastation and mistreatment of the demon race. Clarice killing the blacksmith post-Demon Lord transformation. And Clarice's breakdown and transformation into the new Demon Lord. I think the structure of this game would complement the style of storytelling very well. The protag and main cast, and by extension us, have amnesia due to Clarice's memory erasure. We're in the middle of a mystery world that clearly isn't the main reality, with no idea of how we got here or its purpose. These memory cutscenes would pretty much be just like the ones from Breath of the Wild, little chunks of info that gradually give the player information with which to piece the puzzle together, and provide characterization for the game's main antagonist, Clarice, who really needs it. Despite Doriel basically being Clarice, the two still feel like separate characters, and the original Clarice barely gets any screen time to shine until the very end of the game, which is a shame considering how much I really like her. Seeing all of this firsthand would be much more compelling than simply reading about it. Showing is more powerful than telling, after all. I think I've rambled on about the game's story enough for now though, so I'll take this time to divert my attention to the game's main cast before delving into the game's final chapter. Each chapter of the game, a new girl will join you in the safe house. Besides being new faces to talk to, all of them also offer unique services to the player in the safe house to help them on their expeditions. Before rescuing any of them though, we start off with Doriel, the offshoot of Clarice's consciousness. She seems sort of distant and robotic, seemingly having not much of a personality to begin with. Over the course of the game, she begins having an internal conflict. She is laser focused on her purpose as the guide, and believes she holds no other value afterward, since she believes she will simply disappear. Thanks to the company of everybody else, she starts valuing herself some more, and showing more emotion, furthered by her consciousness reintegrating with Clarice. We already know about the soul imprint system from long ago, so I'll skip repeating that. I don't really have too much to say about her though. Maybe she bores me sometimes with how slow she talks, but I still root for her regardless. Retzia is a holy knight of the church. She carries this huge-ass, somewhat unrealistically large sword, but who cares, it's anime. Retzia is a nice girl. She's pleasant, polite, and can be cute when she gets flustered, but she's pretty vanilla all things considered. Most of her arc either went nowhere or was so small that I completely forgot about it. Retzia offers potions in exchange for souls. I usually just buy floating and invisibility potions and nothing else, but it's a nice service nonetheless. Skewer is another character that is pretty flat all things considered, but she fits the archetype of comedic relief for the most part. She's an airhead, naive, but she still has her smarts as a thief turned treasure hunter. Despite her grey occupation, prankster demeanor, and status as a demon, she is easily the most friendly out of all the characters, human and demon alike. Her simple-minded approach can be a nice reprieve from everyone else's complex thinking. She has basically zero development though, and to some people I can understand if they find her fucking insufferable. Skewer runs a general shop. She scavenges random materials and accessories and sells them to you for souls. Some of these prices are fucking outrageous, but it's one of the best sources for accessories, if you can get actually good ones that is. The scraps she sells can also be really nice since they often have high level skills, but again, some of these are pretty fucking expensive. I don't think I utilized her shop very much until my hardcore playthrough. Shinoa is a blacksmith, like us. She's all about helping other people, which is why she calls herself One-chan all the time. Again, there's a lack of development here, with most of it being her backstory and experience with the cursed sword and Clarice. According to Doriel, something bad happens when she gets drunk, but she doesn't get to finish that sentence. Those who play the funny version of this game will get to see exactly what that means. She runs a repair service, where you can restore a weapon's durability and add an extra material to it as well. This service is great for prized weapons you may want to keep around for a boss encounter, though you can't abuse it forever, as each has diminishing returns. Not to mention, repair costs themselves can be really expensive. Stenga is my favorite character in this game. She has the most development and the most interesting history out of the entire cast. When you first meet her, she seems like an asshole. She's rude, blunt, looks down on everyone. Even Skewer, a demon, she looks down on her too. She even starts fighting with Retsia the moment she sees her, exposing her identity as a demon general. It seems like Stenga is just going to be the archetypical mean girl or tsundere type, but thankfully she shows a lot more personality than that. And by the end of the game, she hasn't done a complete 180, but her hostility is greatly toned down and she starts appreciating things much more. Stenga clearly hides repressed feelings of abandonment and has a lot of trust issues. These manifest in her asshole behavior. Her last name, Roe, is actually not her own. She took it from a human she met when she was a kid. She was homeless, alone, and this human who somehow wandered into demon territory kept trying to give her bread. Eventually, she gave up on shooing him away and just let him stick around. This leads to the human rambling on about how they were a noble and all other kinds of random shit. To Stenga, he was just a weird old man, but even then, it's obvious Stenga started getting attached. Unfortunately, the guy just up and disappears one day, leaving Stenga alone once more. The way she phrases it, I don't know if he walked away or just stopped showing up one day. She takes on his supposed noble name herself, claiming that it might help her, but it's easy to assume that she did it at least partially out of attachment. She even has some sort of keepsake, but I don't think we actually get to see what that is. The way she loosens up is really natural. It's so gradual, but by the end you can really tell how much she's changed. She starts treating Skewer with a bit of respect, which Skewer immediately abuses to try and prank her, and even joins in the big feast planned by Shinoa and Retsia, which she has continuously denied several times before. She also has a rather unique relationship with Clarice. Whereas Retsia and Shinoa are two longtime companions, the demons Skewer and Stenga are here since they made a lasting impression on her. Stenga interrupts the noble gathering to get Clarice's attention, where she plays the whole "Are you still human" card. We get to hear from Stenga why she did this exactly. She says that proclaimed heroes come and go many times in terms of demon lifetime, but Clarice in particular caught her interest. Clarice's feat in the valley makes Stenga want to see what this so-called hero is all about. So she sneaks into human territory, but upon eavesdropping on the nobles supposedly honoring Clarice, she is instead confused when they start talking about how to dispose of her. This actually angers her, so she drops her disguise and starts wreaking havoc, leading to the encounter with Clarice herself. She saw firsthand what the people think of her, which is why she posed the question of "Are you still human?" Stenga seems to show slight sympathy for Clarice, calling her directly as "Oh great hero," which sounds pretty sarcastic, but when you learn from her muttering that she's disappointed in Clarice losing to her own emotions, you get the feeling there's some actual respect in there somewhere. We get even more insight into her through Demon Lord Noxel. Stenga's position in the army is an arrangement with Noxel, who helps Stenga control the intense magic within her arm. Despite the obvious hierarchy, Stenga doesn't really like Noxel, seeing her as unnecessarily cryptic, all bark, and no bite. She even gets pissed off severely in a private conversation we could eavesdrop on. She hates how Noxel seemingly didn't care for all the losses the demons were suffering during the war, mocking her obsession with fate and destiny. But Noxel makes an insinuation that everything, including her death, and Clarice's rise to power were part of that destiny she was trying to follow. A comment about mutual annihilation being a complete victory is uttered, which sounds like a joke, but either way, it makes Stenga fucking angry. Noxel is unfazed though, and she throws a question at Stenga, asking if Clarice's indiscriminate destruction of the entire world has fulfilled her deepest wish, which turns out to be the same thing, the annihilation of everything, humans and demons alike, which, now that it's fulfilled, leaves Stenga with nothing left. Her eyes go wide and she doesn't really have a good response for it. She then stands down and walks out without saying a word, besides telling us to get lost for listening in. A girl with attachment issues and filled with hatred for everything gets exactly what she wanted. Destruction, only to regret it, and thanks to her time in the safe house, she starts to appreciate the world more, wanting to escape this world just to see the original at least one more time. She's a great character, and that's why she's my favorite of the bunch. She also just so happens to have the most useful service in the game, magic implantation. This lets you select one of several different buffs to keep permanently for the next run in exchange for a small amount of souls. The buffs are generally helpful, but like with other things in this game, the balancing is kind of whack. Shockwave is a total game changer, giving your normal attacks massive range and allowing you to strike around corners. Costs stamina, but most of the time this stamina cost is completely negligible. Martial arts secrets sounds like a complete joke until you realize this is a final damage multiplier of 500% or more, and accessory damage gets added on to bare hand damage, so you can literally deal upwards of thousands of damage with your bare hands, one-shotting pretty much any enemy in the game and deleting bosses from existence. The rest of the perks range from okay-ish to hilariously bad. Embracing Death, Element Walker, Intense Pressure, and Defensive Combo are far too weak or situational to be practical. Devil's Luck and Rapid Growth are better than nothing, but they aren't really interesting. Explosive Force and Leadership are too random, though gambling is always kind of funny. Swift Movement and Agility are meh, and Dominating Strength might be useful for stunning bosses or causing big collision damage with knockback skills like Strike of Fury, but it's still kind of mid. Rejection Reaction is a complete joke. Why would you ever want to take guaranteed knockback each time you take damage? My only guess is that its intention is to prevent you from getting surrounded, but this makes ranged enemies almost completely untouchable and is just incredibly annoying in general. Sure, you get 15% more defense on all elements, but the knockback thing destroys any potential it has, and worse. Just remove that part. The defense bonus on its own is useful enough. Magic Implantation is a great system overall though. Since you only get a few to select from before each run, you can't just be spamming the same effect each time, and it adds some variety to the gameplay. It's just the balancing really leaving something to be desired. Most effects are either useless, mediocre, or just detrimental. Shockwave, Swift Movement, and Martial Arts Secrets are probably the only 3 effects I would actually want to get at any time. Martial Arts Secrets 100% needs to be changed, since it looks useless on paper, but to those who know how it works, it's actually the most broken thing in the entire game. Shockwave is also way too strong. There should probably be some kind of damage fall off at long range, or the SP cost of it needs to be higher. Swift Movement, Dominating Strength, and Agility are okay, but I think they need just a little more oomph. Devil's Luck and Rapid Growth are completely usable, but they're too boring. The rest of the perks are all dead in the water and need total reworks or replacements. Lastly, we have Noxel, the original Demon Lord. She's quite an interesting one. She doesn't have much time, since she's the last character you meet, but even in such little time, she makes a pretty good impression. And I'm not just talking about her looks, I promise. Noxel has had an obsession with fate and destiny for a long time. They can read the river of fate, as they say, basically foreseeing the future. It started subtle, with her exposure to wars, battles, and other conflicts giving her a small hint of it. This grows into her beginning to make predictions, which all come true, even using it to rise to the position of Demon Lord, which only further empowers her to read this metaphorical river. Noxel's reliance on it goes seemingly too far, though, as we end up in this predicament. We witnessed earlier in the argument between her and Stenga about how Noxel's following of destiny supposedly led to our current circumstances, with Clarice destroying everything. But Clarice actually was not part of that destiny. Noxel was completely unable to predict her in any capacity. Clarice's plan at the Valley was an unexpected blow to her plans. Somehow, despite this, the downfall of humanity was still certain, and she remained unshaken and continued giving orders without hesitation, riding all in on the whims of fate. No matter what though, the demons continued to suffer losses, and the river of fate that she had been following was now tainted with blood. This earned the mockery of the demon commanders, including Stenga, who all considered her a fool for believing in some invisible force, which explains Stenga's passive-aggressive or even hostile attitude toward Noxel. Even in her death, when Clarice pierced Azraheart through her body, Noxel only donned a look of fascination, believing that her death too was part of fate. She believes that she and Clarice were both chained down by a hyperfixation on one thing. For Noxel it was fate, and for Clarice it was hope. And now, here in the safe house, Noxel still clings to the idea of fate, but now eagerly awaits the Blacksmith's and Clarice's encounter to create a new river, a new possibility. It's not much of an arc, really, since her little development is in her backstory, but I find her to be really fascinating. She's quite entertaining anytime she's on screen, and makes you question how a person like this could bear a title as ruthless sounding as Demon Lord. Rather than offering a service, Noxel allows the player to undergo special trials in the arena, rewarding high-level items for their completion. These trials are specifically crafted to test your strategy, presenting very specific and bizarre scenarios that need you to utilize every last bit of the limited resources provided to you. Some of these are actually really fucking hard, and the difficulty is fixed too, so don't think you'll have it easy if you're playing on assisted mode. These trials kind of stressed me out, to be honest, and it's not something I like to repeat. A select few of them really made me angry, and I felt like I was just throwing shit at the wall until something stuck most of the time. It's a nice distraction for those wanting to challenge themselves though. While the good majority of the cast is a bit lacking in the development department, what really matters is how everyone interacts with each other, and man, I love every second of it. The characters' dispositions and perspectives bounce off each other very nicely. You can be having a heavy-weighted and emotionally draining conversation, and Skier will come along to inject a much-needed dose of good vibes and simple thinking. Shinoa's energetic and often unrealistically optimistic outlook is challenged by Stenga's grounded and rather bleak one, and the two sort of rub off on each other to bring themselves toward a nicer middle ground. It's a great cast, and the voice actors all did a damn good job as well. I also think most of the services they provide are quite useful, though due to the way story events work, sometimes these services can be randomly unavailable, which is mildly annoying. Main cast aside, the general world of the game is really rich and deep. There's a lot of nice details that just make everything fit together. The elite enemies you encounter aren't just random designs. These are major figures with their own relationships and histories in the real world. Humans and demons are out there fighting, but the elves are their own race that live in isolation, until Clarice's advent brings them out of the woodworks and into the main conflict. The thief elite is likely a former comrade of Skewer in her bandit company days, even calling her an adoptive sister. Hel and Commander are two humans that both had the powers of dark magic forced onto them. Hel was seemingly a noble, exiled from the rest of humanity, now resenting them as a result. She even earns the nickname of God of Purgatory. The maid elite is her servant who carries out assassinations on her behalf, mostly targeting other nobles. The commander, somehow, remains in the army. Despite her supposed evil magic, she is a genuine leader, putting her soldiers' lives first and foremost. She even has a short history with Retsia, who threatens her, asking why she has dark powers. There's a really cool detail about her I want to highlight. In her end-of-the-road memory where she is defeated by Clarice, she sacrifices herself that her soldiers can escape, and to do this, she dives at Clarice from high in the air. Her signature skill, Heavenly Dive, does exactly this. I really like details like this, bravo. Alaroon, the Flower Lady, is one of the few demons that doesn't outright hate humans. A human boy bumps into her trying to find herbs to cure disease. He panics, thinking that she'll eat him or something, only for Alaroon to give him seeds, instructing him to grow them. After he leaves, Lamia, who is also there, asks Alaroon why she did that, and she explains that she'll welcome anyone who takes care of the flowers. Lamia and Alaroon seemingly have extensive history. The witch is a high-ranking demon that is responsible for creating the zombie, I think, and her strong magic is utilized throughout the war. The slime is a weirdo that is obsessed with finding their prince and is kind of stupid. Stenga and Slime know each other, though I don't think there are any details. Stenga does reference her one time though, asking if she needs to speak in slime language to make us go away when we're bothering her. Details, man. We're almost done with the story-related stuff. We know everything about the world, where it all started, and now it's time for us to see how it ends. Once you rescue Noxel and she gives her big lore dump, you unlock the final chapter of the game. This chapter takes place in the depths of erosion. The designers must really like Persona 5, not that I'm complaining. The atmosphere and mood in this chapter is top-notch. The whole ending chapter had me by the balls from start to finish, even on the second time around. It's a big hurdle to where Clarice awaits. It is a massive region split into 5 different areas. In order to reach Clarice, you must travel to 3 different sub-areas and find these end-of-the-road memories inside that section's big open space. 16,000 words in and I still don't know what the fuck to call those. I fucking suck at writing. You'll find these big conglomerates of what I assume are erosion. Interacting with one will spawn a large horde of enemies, usually including 3 elites. These elites are special, as they have cursed sword resistance, so using Omega Curse Tempest as a get-out-of-jail-free card is not an option. You need to be ready before you trigger these encounters or you will eat shit. I like this because you're essentially reliving Clarice's battles with the elites. The end-of-the-road memories all show their last moments before Clarice kills them, and the elites you fight are the ones that appear in the respective memory you get. Again, the details, man. This game's detailing is Upon unlocking all the end-of-the-road memories, you can proceed into the final stretch, Depths of the End, followed by Beyond the Chaos, which is the very same area that the game starts. I love it when things come full circle. Before you try to face Clarice, there is something very important that you can do. When you first enter Depths of Erosion, you'll be notified of an intense erosion, and that exploration will be difficult if you don't do something about it. You'll also start finding these weird shrines located in each of the subsections asking for a weapon of each element. Throughout your adventure, there is a likelihood you have forged at least one of the Xander weapons. These weapons are very special, as they have memories embedded in their description. The House of Xander is a mysterious, behind-the-scenes force in this game's story. Very little information is given to us about them, but we do know of at least one, and that is Lady Xander herself. The Xander family has a history of studying magic, including dark magic, though their specialty is in defensive magic, a trait reflected in the Xander weapons, as each one has the unique skill to grant resistance to its own element. Once again, coming in strong with the details. Prophecy of Calamity was passed down through the family, though the Xanders were hunted and outcast as heretics by the Church of Light. Despite this, they work from the shadows. At some point, Lady Xander acquaints herself with a blacksmith, asking him to forge 5 unique weapons: the Xander Dagger, Rapier, Greatsword, Hammer, and Blade. These weapons were created with the purpose to create a magic barrier to protect against the prophesized calamity. That so-called calamity is Clarice. In one of the end-of-the-road memories, you can see her implanting one of the weapons in company of several elites. Inside the Purgatory world, it is something we can do as well. By forging and implanting each weapon into their proper circle, we can activate this barrier, which has the benefit of making the final boss easier. I don't know how much easier because I've only ever fought it with this barrier active. I also believe it is required to get this game's full ending, though I could be wrong about that. This process can be kind of annoying for first-timers, not gonna lie. Precise forging exists pretty much for this quest, but holy shit, it's expensive and you'll either be making a lot of random garbage you don't actually need, or you'll save scum the shit out of it until you pick the right one, which is what I did. Remember, there's 120 weapons in the game and you have to specifically find 5 of them. I'm sort of getting PTSD flashbacks, as the Xander weapons feel like this game's version of Metroid Prime 2's Sky Temple Key MacGuffin hunt, though at least these aren't mandatory just to finish the game. Maybe. While end-of-the-road memories are required, there are also the memories of purity you can find hidden in each outpost area. Collecting all of these will empower the old necklace accessory from worthless to game-changing, changing it to the Necklace of Conviction, which gives you a massive reduction to passive erosion and cursed sword cost, making it easily one of the best accessories in the game. One last thing before Clarice. You've probably collected a bunch of these pure white souls by this point, and are probably wondering,
what the fuck is this piece of shit?
Thankfully, you get your answer right at the end, as there's a shop called Deja Vu, where you can trade these souls for endgame items, or more practically, upgrade souls of your choice. Considering you can just try to farm more endgame items, I don't really see the appeal of buying them here when permanent stat increases are the blatantly obvious decision. Regardless, it is time. We can push through the door to the end, and lo and behold, Clarice stands there, waiting.
ここが私の物語が終わった場所。そして私の物語が始まった場所。思い入れの深いところだったからこんな形になったのかな。君が今まで見てきたすべての景色のように。 また会ったね。体の刺し傷が全部治ったね。嬉しい。
Clarice's whole dialogue here is really unnerving in a good way. For someone whose mind is in shambles, she could speak pretty coherently. Clarice also arms herself with a curse sword, though this one is an imitation, since the real one is in our hands. Clarice's version is a lot more distorted, withered, and misshapen than the real one, basically how she sees the sword. But of course, we didn't come here to talk it out. We came here to fight.
大丈夫。これからもたくさん時間はあるから。今はもっと大切なことがあるの。私たちが昔よくやってたことだよ。さあ、戦いましょう。それがここに来た目的でしょ。誰が誰の心臓を突き刺せるか。君が世界を裏切った勇者を倒し、絶望にとらわれた魂を救うか。私がもう一度君から全てを奪い、物語を最初からやり直させるか。どんな結果になっても私は嬉しいよ。だってこれこそが、この世界が私が望んでいることだから。
I'm saving boss fight breakdowns for after this story, but from a narrative and sentimental standpoint, this game doesn't pull any punches. The fight with Clarice is intense and an emotional roller coaster. The hint of innocence at the start with Clarice reflecting before greeting us, turning into the real her, her unsettling yet disheartening monologue, all coming together with the orchestra hit that begins the music, which, by the way, is a fucking banger. The fight is super dynamic and chaotic, with Clarice slowly getting swept away by her emotions. She starts off seemingly composed, and by the end of the fight, she's really letting out the crazy.
最後の瞬間まで味わおうよ。他のことなんてもうどうなってもいいから。
The game fuels the hype train with the intro cutscene, and then that hype train goes full throttle. The music, the gameplay, the atmosphere, it's all fuel for the engine, but Clarice keeps adding more, and it all ends with a massive bang when Clarice pulls out the super move at the end, destroying every item in her inventory except the curse sword, which we then draw to try and beat the living shit out of her before she goes nuclear. The erosion meter is gone, so we've gone beyond the point of no return. We just gotta keep swinging and swinging and swinging. It's a draw. Both parties are completely exhausted. Clarice laments how, maybe, if we had been there, things would have been different. That line really hits me because she's definitely right. If we didn't stay behind when Clarice left on the expedition, someone would have been there to share her burdens. And then Doriel appears out of the blue. She plans to act now while Clarice is incapacitated. She takes the crown from Clarice and asks us to stab her with the curse sword in order to end everything, freeing all the trapped souls and destroying this world. You can try to hold on to yourself, but no matter what you do, you're fated to do as she says. The blade pierces through, and Doriel remarks that she was truly glad to meet us, before everything disappears in crimson.
本当によかった。
What happens afterward is kind of a mystery. We see a memory of Clarice saying her goodbyes to the blacksmith, assumedly just before the expedition, but before she leaves, we give her something. A custom sword, made just for her. She leaves, and a mysterious blue light appears before the screen fades and the credits roll. Damn, what a way to end things. Well, one way. It's quite bitter. Speculation here, but I feel this ending is hinting at a cycle of sorts. We didn't destroy the erosion or the crown, we simply set everything back to the beginning, so in the end we may have accomplished nothing. This idea of a cycle is quite prominent throughout the game. While exploring beyond the chaos, there's these memories of the blacksmith meeting the main cast, which we have never actually experienced directly. Noxel comments on how the River of Fate is stagnant and going nowhere, and you can begin a new game from this point, earning a special item called the Mark of Reincarnation each time. Even losing against Clarice results in the same thing, restarting from the beginning. So, is that it? No, of course not. There's a true ending in typical RPG fashion. Upon completing the game at least once, the path to the true ending is available. The requirements are a bit vague, but from what I've heard and experienced, you require the following. You must have completed the game on that save file at least once. You must have acquired every memory of the hero, which are spread throughout the depths of erosion and its sub-areas. You must place all Xander weapons into their pedestals, and you must bond with your allies. My speculation is that this means the feast scene has played and everyone's greeting dialogue has changed, which by the way is another cool detail. Once you do this, you can refight Clarice. This time, you can keep holding on to yourself and refuse to stab Doriel. Not gonna lie, this feels pretty arbitrary. I get that they want people to see the original ending first before seeing the true one, but having to backtrack and repeat the Clarice fight, even when you meet all the other prerequisites, is a bit annoying. I had the same problem with Chrono Gear when I played it, where all the momentum at the end gets dead stopped because I'm forced to retrace my steps. Persona 4 doesn't require you to go back in time to experience its true ending. You simply need to be observant and find the path to it. Even though I'm dodgy on the process of getting to the true ending, the actual contents are well worth any trouble. Doriel insists on fulfilling her wish, but since we keep refusing, she tries to force us by surrounding us with shadows. Thankfully, our stalling and holding on bought just enough time for help to arrive. Thanks to Doriel's distraction, Noxel's power, and the abundance of souls Skewer has been collecting, all the supporting cast is able to get here in time. Everyone confronts Doriel about the truth of her mission, and Shinoa makes the connection that, at this moment, Doriel and Clarice are essentially the same person. They've been slowly merging consciousness the entire time. While they are two distinct personalities, they now both share each other's thoughts and emotions. Doriel tells us that Clarice feels one emotion above all the rest: guilt. The reality of her mission is to allow us to exact vengeance and provide retribution in death. But the Fun Gang ain't having it. As far as everyone is concerned, the real problem is the Demon Lord's power and the curse that brought about everything. Everyone manages to talk Doriel down, and it seems like the power in her disappears, and then it comes back with a vengeance. Everyone is paralyzed, and everything gets destroyed in a massive eruption, bringing us to the pure manifestation of the Demon Lord's power, the Crown of Erosion. As all of our shit was destroyed, we are armed only with the Cursed Sword, but we've already eroded ourselves too much fighting Clarice. There's no chance to win. You're going down no matter what. In the void, a voice comes through. Clarice reappears, but this time, back to her real self.
よかった。まだ意識がある。もし君がこのまま目覚めなかったら、もっと自分を許せなくなっていたところだよ。
The following scene actually made me cry. The wholesome meter is off the goddamn charts here. Clarice, after asking about the quality of the ground to the ground-loving sleeper, gives him a nice lap pillow. She's wanted to see them for so long. She's wanted to share everything she's experienced, and tell him all about the people she's met on her journey. and she's very glad to have this chance finally, feeling very fulfilled as a result. She wants to make things right, and she wants to let us rest after doing so much. Nobody needs to suffer anymore because of her actions, but that's the exact thought process that led to her transformation in the first place, and the Smith refuses to make the same mistake twice. Clarice is not alone. She has people she can rely on, friends, and someone who cares for her no matter what. And thanks to this, she finally gets it through. And so, instead of tackling this problem by herself, the both of them, Clarice and the blacksmith, will do it together. With her mind cleared, she channels her strength into the cursed sword, Azrahart, the Shimmering sword. With this sword, Clarice feels like she can do anything, and as long as we have this sword, we can do anything. She entrusts it to us, and it's time for the final fight.
さあ、行こう。私たちの願いを叶えるために。
Azrahart, once stained black with despair, now shines bright as the heavens. It's time to fuck shit up. I can summarize this final fight in 2 words. Absolute cinema. I've been saving this phrase this whole review for something worth it, because if there's anything that deserves that accolade, it's this fight. The hype train may have slowed down beforehand, but it's revving back up at full speed, and now there's rocket thrusters strapped to the engine card, and it's going full blast. The train has officially derailed and begun flying into the stratosphere. This fight is entirely scripted, and you can't lose it, but who gives a fuck? The game is now squeezing my balls tighter than... The game is now squeezing my balls tighter... The game is now... Fuck me, man, I can't read this with a straight face. The game is now Fuck. The game is now squeezing my balls tighter than a hydraulic press, and the devs put every ounce of their being into cranking the epic factor to its max. For starters, this music fucking cooks. Another fully composed track, reimagining Clarice's boss theme into a multi-part orchestral masterpiece that screams hope. Not only that, but the entire user interface has changed from the rusty metal gray to a bright, glowing azure blue. No longer do we have erosion, but instead, we are accumulating shimmer. We now wield the true form of Azrahart. It's basically the Master Sword, and it's going to tear the crown apart. All the curse skills transform into azure skills. The sword itself can be enhanced an unlimited amount of times, and weapon scraps will appear for us to endlessly empower the weapon, complete with an entirely unique particle effect and fucking crispy sound design. Listen to this shit. There's no limits to anything, and Azrahart can literally reach thousands of points of damage in every element, and wield so many skills that the UI doesn't even know how to render the icons properly. Each enhancement increases Azrahart's brightness, further empowering the Azure skills, with Azure Tempest eventually being capable of dealing 5-figure damage like it's nothing. The crown is relentless, but thanks to Azrahart and the help of the cast, nothing is stopping us from continuously slashing it down to pieces. It concludes with Clarice herself joining us, holding the sword alongside us, as we charge at full force and completely obliterate the crown in a blinding flash.
今度は私が君の剣となり、最後の瞬間まで君に寄り添うよ。この剣さえあれば、私は何でもできる。君さえいれば、私は何でもできる。 れで最後だ。終わった。この戦争の結末は始まり同様。
A speech from Lady Xander wraps everything up. When the word of Clarice's transformation first spread, the entire continent, human, demon, elf, it didn't matter, everyone united at miraculous speed. Everyone gave their all to confront the new demon lord in this unprecedented crisis. But no matter who tried, no matter how many or how mighty they were, everyone fell to Clarice's power, and she endlessly rampaged across the world. Many moons pass, with the erosion slowly seeping, consuming the entire planet and its people. The few left were backed into a corner. There was no hope. The extinction of humans and demons alike was at hand, and the world would soon draw its last breath. But Clarice suddenly stopped. The erosion vanished without a trace. That's what the scout troops reported anyway. Lady Xander and her troop reached the scene before the army does, and upon arrival witnessed the unthinkable. Clarice the hero, the blacksmith, and an unknown girl, unconscious in a field of grass. Lady Xander acts immediately, ordering the three to be transported to a hidden stronghold. Lady Xander recalls the prophecy that when the world is nearly destroyed by calamity, chaos will be reborn anew. The soul born between erosion's grasp will become the light that illuminates the world. This light is the unidentified girl, which is Doriel herself, now a manifestation of the crown, seemingly calm and rid of its vile nature. Her last remark is that she has fulfilled the task her father entrusted, though even without such a duty, she would have done as she did regardless, either out of debt to the blacksmith for the creation of the Xander weapons, or out of sympathy for Clarice. She believes the continent can slowly return to peace, rebuilding what was once lost, and maybe this would finally begin to dissolve the hatred between human and demon. And then credits roll, baby. Jesus Christ, we're finally done, right? I can stop talking about this. Oh, there's a fucking post-credits scene, god damn. We get to see the real world, slowly rebuilding society to what it was. The rest of the cast is miraculously alive, except for Noxel, unfortunately, as she was killed normally by Clarice, not by the erosion. Shinoa and Skewer are rebuilding and taking a lunch break, and we get to see that, indeed, the barriers between humans and demons are starting to go down a bit, with them beginning to actually talk to each other. We also see Stenga and Retsia, once mortal enemies, now in the same carriage. Retsia seems to have gotten some bad looks from the church as usual, but she doesn't care, and will continue to do what she thinks is right. Stenga is still being Stenga, but she seems to ease up and actually like Retsia a bit now. And the final scene is with Clarice, Doriel, and the blacksmith. In a remote village isolated from the world, the three make a new life. Since Clarice is a wanted mass murderer, this self-sufficient village is the only place she can really be, as everyone here is completely oblivious to the calamity. The blacksmith is still sleeping literally anywhere but a bed, much to Clarice's dismay. Rather than forging weapons, he spends his days making pots and pans and whatnot. Clarice teaches swordsmanship to the village children, an unusual and rather dull way to spend your days, but at this point, it's very much a warm welcome. Doriel is able to walk around already, and is even carrying heavy things like raw ore. Her nature as the crown is a mystery, and looking after her is Clarice and the smith's duty in exchange for their life of solitude. The three depart to begin another day, and we end on this wonderful, beautiful CG, followed by a picture of Azerheart, worn from endless battle, finally laying in rest. Did I tell you that this was a hentai game? Okay, holy fuck. I'm finally done talking about the story and characters. I'm sorry if I got a bit sloppy and concise at the end here, but I'm 20,000 words in and I really want to wrap this up. I've said it a bunch of times and I'll say it once more to sell everything home. I love this game's story. It's not revolutionary, it's kind of weak in the beginning, but when it tries to go hard, it really works. I think with a bit of cleaning up and some cutscenes of critical moments in the original world, this could be one hell of a story to remember. Seeing an awesome spin on an otherwise cliché story is always welcome. The cast, while sometimes flat, are still wonderful, and the voice acting combined with the atmosphere sells everything nicely. But now, I have to talk about the elephant in the room. Though I've been making jabs about it every once in a while, I've yet to actually talk about it directly. This game is an eroge. There are plenty of scenes of doing the deed. And I'm going to be entirely honest with you. I think these all detract from the game overall. Now, this is ironic coming from someone who found the game and bought it because of the arrow. And I'm not trying to sound like a prude. My issue with the arrow is that it doesn't actually tie into the game's story or setting, and it actually hurts the story's best aspect, the relationship between Clarice and the blacksmith. These two are clearly an OTP, or an OT3 if you count Doriel, even though she's basically the same person. So it's kind of hard to take that relationship seriously when you're smashing every other member of the main cast, or every single one of the elite chicks after they kick your ass, even though it's not by choice. Don't ask me what my favorite tags are. You do get some mild bits of character out of it sometimes. Stenga shows her repressed feelings of abandonment, Shinoa really likes serving guests, and Doriel, after beginning to merge with Clarice, starts harboring the same feelings for the blacksmith as she does. But honestly, I'm too invested into the gameplay and setting to give a rat's ass about cranking my hog. I turned off the arrow like 1/4 into the game, because I was having so much fun that I started sharing the game with my friends. The arrow just distracts me honestly, and also prevents me from sharing the game in other circles because it's interloge. I gifted a game to a friend who watched me play the whole thing multiple times. Even though he's very familiar with how this game works and how much I appreciate it, he doesn't call this game the game with the huge crafting system, or the game with a cool story and great ending, or even just its title. It's just the hentai game to him. And that's the unfortunate label that this game will always carry with it, and that fucking sucks. I'm not going to recommend this game to my IRL friends because if I do, they'll see what kind of game it is and think I'm a fucking freak, which is true, but I'm trying to make sure they don't know that part. And that's the main reason I made this review in the first place, to show people that this game is worth way more than just a few quick chicken choking sessions. You know, I almost didn't play the game. There's an option to unlock all the arrow scenes right off the bat, and while the game says, please play our game still, we tried to make one that's actually good, I almost passed off on it. Imagine that. Of course, I'm not asking to censor the game. The artist probably went through hell drawing and animating every single one of these scenes, and I absolutely respect that. But I would absolutely remove the ability to unlock all the scenes for free until you've completed the game at least once. I imagine there are some people who missed out on an experience they would have otherwise loved because they judged the book by its cover and skipped reading it to look at the pictures instead. But I digress. This game is an eroge, but it's also just a fucking good game. This is actually why I find the Steam version to be the superior experience. It has achievements, which the DL side version does not, and the eroge is not present without patching it in, so you can focus entirely on the gameplay and story, unless you want to patch the arrow in which case it's pretty easy to do. Alright, enough beating on the arrow. There's still some extra gameplay features I've yet to talk about. For one, I haven't gotten into detail on the boss fights. Let's do that. The first boss is a giant possessed armor. This one's pretty basic, but that makes sense for the first boss. It's a good introduction to how the rest of the bosses will function. It has simple AoE moves with a good amount of time to just walk out of the way, but then it speeds up, which teaches the player that they may need to use movement skills or haste to avoid AoE moves. There's a couple mechanics shared by most bosses that are worth talking about. For one, all bosses have super armor. That may sound like it makes knockback skills useless, but don't worry, they have a different purpose. Bosses can be forced into a broken state, which is basically a lengthy stun that lets you beat the living shit out of them for a few turns. Hitting the boss repeatedly will eventually cause them to break, but knockback skills will greatly accelerate this process. This is particularly important for bosses 3 and 4, which are difficult to attack head-on repeatedly. The sound design for this is just icing on the cake, and wailing on helpless bosses is immensely satisfying. All bosses also have a big resistance to the cursed sword. It's basically completely worthless against bosses except for dealing with their summons. Once you progress far enough into a boss, these blue lights will appear, and item drops will continuously start to spawn around you. The items that spawn are generally helpful against the boss you're fighting, such as a bunch of explosives for boss 2, which is weak to them. Speaking of which, boss 2. It's a giant 4-legged robot. This is your run-of-the-mill expose the weak point type boss. Disable all 4 of its legs, and it comes crashing down for you to beat up, rinse and repeat. The boss itself is actually pretty harmless, as its projectiles and leg slams are extremely easy to dodge. The real threat is the constant summoning of reinforcements. If you happen to have explosives stockpiled, you're in for a treat, as they deal extreme damage to the legs, allowing you to one-shot them from a distance. The head is also weak to them, so you can easily deal thousands of damage to the head in a single knockdown. Once the blue lights appear, you basically have infinite explosives too, so again, the only real worry is the summons. The commander also appears as a quick mini-boss. Nothing special, it's just a strong elite with cursed sword resistance. It's a pretty cool shakeup though, and I wish more parts of the game had these elite mini-bosses. Boss 3 is an interesting one. It takes place in a huge winding road filled to the brim with human soldiers. This one is basically a gauntlet. The boss will continuously try to run away from you and empower the soldiers on the way. It's a balancing act of trying to attack the boss and also dealing with the enemies. There's a couple of unique strategies you can employ here that make this more engaging. For one, the boss can be immobilized. It's resistant, but it is doable. It's also very easy to put into a broken state with just a few good strikes. If you're able to damage the boss enough, it will teleport further ahead on the path, possibly even all the way to the very end, allowing you to duel the enemies unbuffed. You can also use digging stones or weapons that can break walls to make shortcuts in the path to cut the boss off, or otherwise just avoid enemies you'd rather not fight. Overall, kind of lengthy compared to the other bosses, but it's still really fun regardless. Good music choice too. Boss 4. This one's a doozy. Rather than chasing the boss down, the boss will be chasing you instead. The first step is to get to the end of this long path section. This boss is very mobile, constantly disappearing and reappearing at the player's position, and you can't just walk out of the way. Mobility skills or haste is necessary. The boss also has a 2-tile reach, on top of very strong knockback and damage, so fighting it head-on is very unwise. Hit-and-run strategies or range skills seem to be the optimal play here, or using skills that deal knockback to put it into a broken state. Sources of super armor and floating will make the knockback much less of a threat. You can make a mad dash for the end at the start, or you can fight the boss off, as it will leave you alone if you hurt it enough. Either way, reaching the stairs at the end will send you into the second phase. Okay, the ads in this phase are actually fucking annoying. The boss is already enough of a threat as it is, so having to deal with these douchebag larva shadows sniping me is hot garbage. After dealing some more damage, the boss will power up, at which point its moves become much more dangerous. It will start chaining together 4 or 5 of its attacks sequentially, so I hope hardcore players have several mobility skills ready to use. Really good boss though. It's really frantic and chaotic. Definitely my second favorite. And then there's Boss 5. This boss is not good. It's an unfortunate C-grade blemish on an otherwise straight-A report card. It's a giant immobile foe with a large array of gimmicks. Let's start with the most important one, its attacks. This fucker has massive AoE attacks that cover entire sections of the room. We're talking maybe a quarter of it at a time. These attacks hit hard and deal huge knockback. Now most of these are realistically dodgeable. Staying in the center of the room and having a 3 or 4 distance movement skill, or 2 skills on hardcore, makes this manageable. This is pretty doable at this point in the game with an accessory or a buff from Stenga. Whip of Rogue though, this skill is fucking bullshit. It has a gargantuan area of effect with a 5-tile overlap, and it deals very high damage. Sure, you can use haste and have 2 3-distance movement skills in order to get out of the way, but I think you're asking too much at that point. Let's also talk about her super magic skills and healing. You may notice these human soldiers constantly walking in and attacking the boss. That sounds beneficial, but no, this is the worst part. For one, since her skills cover so much ground, she's going to kill them super easily and very fast. The in-game hints recommend you kill them before she does, but that is the most fucking stupid thing I have ever heard. It's a huge waste of time and a huge opportunity cost to damage the boss, which should be your priority 1 at all times. When she kills them, she will heal a bit, not too big a problem, but when she kills too many of them, she will be able to charge up a giant magic spell. The light spell isn't too bad, as you can just get out of the way, but the ice and fire ones, oh man. If you see her start charging one, you better fucking stack every bit of elemental resistance and block rate you can. These will nuke the entire arena, and are strong enough to insta-kill you even on lower difficulties if you don't stack resistances. She also summons these empowering crystals that will explode in a huge range after a few turns. The entire arena will be affected if you destroy at least one. Bonus points, she almost always uses Whip of Rogue at the same time, so good luck trying to dispatch one in time while avoiding a giant AoE move that covers half the entire arena at a time. Lastly, there's the element shields. She's resistant to physical, but is neutral to all magic elements. However, if you deal too much damage of one element, it will trigger its shield, forcing you to wait or switch to a weapon that deals different damage types. These shields can stack too, so you can't just alternate between 2 weapons. This part is actually really cool, requiring the player to bring a variety of strong weapons and accessories with different element types. What's not cool is the reflect shield, which basically tells you to straight fuck off for a few turns. Completely unnecessary bullshit in a fight already full of it. There is one optimal strategy for this fight. Brute force. Stack up soul drops and strong items, bring strong weapons, strong damage accessories, and wait for a good buff from Stanga like Shockwave or Martial Arts Secrets. Bring the illusionary sword ring, which you can find at the beginning of this chapter, as its multi-hit capabilities are perfect for this immobile large target. It's literally almost double damage for free. Ignore the soldiers entirely and hyper-focus on one thing, damaging the boss. Stay in the center and dodge attacks when it's convenient, but otherwise, just fucking roll the punches. Abuse cursed armament for its free block rate and super armor, less damage taken, less time spent healing and moving back toward the boss. Your goal is to defeat her before she exhausts all your resources. The longer you take doing anything that isn't damaging her, the more likely you are to run out of resources, because that's more chances for her to kill soldiers, heal, cast super magic, or spam Whip of Rogue like a fucking bitch. The boss has a cool atmosphere, and I really love the music, but the boss itself is not really fun. It's just really fucking stressful. I always dread having to fight her. The super magic and ridiculously sized attacks like Whip of Rogue are the main reasons this fight blows. Deal with those, and maybe this would become more enjoyable. Thankfully, the final fight with Clarice is a great turnaround, and my favorite boss in the game. Not only is the build-up to, and atmosphere of, this fight a home run on its own, but the gameplay of it is equally as strong. Clarice is very unique. She basically mirrors the player. She takes up one tile and moves around like any other enemy. She also takes knockback, unlike other bosses. She makes use of a multitude of weapon skills, the same ones you've been using. She also uses Omega Cursed skills in her last phase. More importantly, she can also block the player's attacks at a very consistent rate. My guess is that it's kind of like Cursed Armament. It's got a pretty high base rate of maybe 40 or 50%, and it accumulates very fast, especially when she's in the middle of focus. She also has two unique skills, Quickstep and Disastrous Blow. Quickstep just shifts her position randomly, and she'll use this at regular intervals. Disastrous Blow is a very dangerous skill. If you're in normal attack range, Clarice might decide that your weapon is best left in pieces. She will deal a humongous amount of durability damage to your equipped weapon. I'm talking like 70 or more, often breaking it instantly. She also has the ability to heal herself every once in a while. It's not too much healing, but it definitely keeps the pressure on. Lastly, she has a special elemental bolt skill. Every time you damage her, an energy orb will appear around her. If you hit her too many times, she'll shift position and launch every one of these at you for some pretty hefty damage. Her huge array of moves, her parry mechanic, and other unique attributes make this fight incredibly varied. There are many different strategies and possibilities depending on what she decides to do and what you decide to do, and each of these strategies have their own appeals and drawbacks. You can attack her head on, brute forcing through her defenses, but risk getting hit by Disastrous Blow and taking repeated attacks. You can also wait for her to charge skills and attack her then, as she cannot parry while doing so, but depending on the skill she uses, you may end up having to take damage in exchange for a guaranteed hit, or you may just not have a chance to strike at all, wasting time and letting her recover. You can use knockback skills like Strike of Fury to send her flying into obstacles or walls for big collision damage, but this is very dependent on both of your positions. You can use multi-hit skills to quickly diminish her block rate and land a few hits, but those hits might not be as strong, and since you're hitting her multiple times, she will retaliate with bolt magic very often. Because she can heal herself, if you play it safe or hold back for too long, you'll start losing ground. If you're too reckless, there's a high chance of you going down. There's also the problem of the ads. Clarice summons a shit ton of goons very often, and things can quickly get out of control if you just ignore them. Generally, the Cursed Sword is very good for taking care of them if things get hairy. It's also usable against Clarice, as she cannot block Cursed Sword attacks, but she does have the damage resistance to it, so it's not too useful. One more interesting note, the thing where you auto Curse Slash upon getting up does not apply here. Clarice will revive you herself if you go down, increasing erosion by a hefty amount. So if you think it's worth it, this is the one time you could use Curse Slash by itself and potentially justify it. Fighting Clarice is about landing decisive blows, rather than dealing raw damage per second, and the strategy crafting is so much more interesting because of it. It all ends with Clarice charging up her super move. She'll jump to the center of the arena and start charging up this Giga Explosion thing. Contrary to how it may seem, this is not entirely scripted. If you just stand there and do nothing, you will actually insta-lose. The massive erosion will destroy your weapons and accessories almost instantly, so your only option is to pop Cursed Armament and go to town. The sooner the better, as she'll send shockwaves to repeatedly knock you back. Close the distance and keep swinging, and pray you deal enough damage before she unleashes the blast. If you succeed, both of you will be completely exhausted. If you fail, you'll collapse to the floor solo and it'll be treated like a game over. Overall, S-tier boss design with S-tier atmosphere. I couldn't ask for a better final boss to a fantastic game. Granted, the real final boss is the fight against the crown, but that one actually is scripted in your favor, so there's nothing to really talk about there besides the spectacle, which we've gone over already in the story section. And that does it for boss fights. Across the board, the game has a solid lineup, with a mild bump in the road near the end that swiftly gets corrected into a pretty much perfect finale. For the last section of this review, I'm going to go over a few other gameplay features that didn't fit in anywhere else, starting with reincarnation. You probably heard me mention the Mark of Reincarnation during the story section. Well, this game has a sort of New Game Plus. Upon finishing the game, either by defeating Clarice, the Crown, or dying to Clarice, you will be prompted to start a new game. Each time you do, you are given a Mark of Reincarnation, which provides a permanent boost to your health, erosion limit, and carrying weight. These can stack too, so you can keep restarting the game as many times as you want, starting off more OP each time. When starting a new game like this, you will carry several things over. If you're starting from the true ending, your storage chest will carry over, its capacity and everything inside, allowing you to smuggle strong items or weapons into the early game. You will also retain all of the entries for weapons and accessories in the journal. In the case of weapons, this means that all weapons you have crafted will have their skills already available in the sword mounts around the labyrinth, and you'll see them in the forging forecast already once you unlock it. Very nice. The soul imprints are also uncapped to their maximum level, and they can be upgraded to that max from the beginning of the game, provided you have the souls for it. There might also be changes to how the upgrade souls drop, but I'm not too sure. It's pretty cool to do this once or twice, though I don't see myself trying to build a massive stack of like 10 marks anytime soon. It further improves upon the game's replayability, which is already big on its own, so yeah, I'm definitely into it. Endless Labyrinth mode, oh baby. Upon completing the true ending, Endless Labyrinth is unlocked. It's kind of like a version of the game contained within itself. As the name implies, it's an endless mode. It's not a roguelite without one after all. You start from the beginning of the labyrinth and go all the way to the very end, fighting all the bosses along the way, including Clarice. Once you beat Clarice, you loop, with each loop presenting stronger enemies, till eventually, no matter how hard you try, you will eventually die and end the run. Your soul imprints and marks of reincarnation do not carry over into Endless Labyrinth. It is entirely self-contained. Instead, it has its own unique upgrade system. Each run will reward you with Halos of Chaos, depending on how far you go and how many bosses you defeat. These can be exchanged to provide permanent bonuses, though these tend to focus on buffing facilities and items found in the labyrinth rather than buffing your abilities directly. You can increase your starting HP a little bit, but the rest do things differently, such as increasing the starting souls, starting items, increasing the amount of erosion reduced at campfires, earning more halos for defeating bosses, increased chance of bonus effects on materials, and the unique ability to allow any item to have bonus effects attached to it, which is pretty funny and chaotic. You can also spend halos on a big collection of illustrations. There's a bunch of these, and they're all really pretty and drawn by a lot of different artists. It's a nice bit of extra collecting. There's sussy ones for those playing the family-friendly edition as well. Endless Labyrinth is a very nice addition, but it feels a bit bland compared to the main game. It does not feature the big open spaces found in the main game. It's just the regular hallways and rooms, and it can get kind of stale after a while. There's also the very big issue of inventory management. Holy shit, this is a problem. In the regular game, most of your inventory expansion will come through healthy souls, which you'll get a good amount of over the course of the game. You'll also get a bit of expansion through the soul imprints, though it's much less than what the upgrade souls would give you overall. Since you're looping one area of the game several times before moving on to the next, there's plenty of time for these to accumulate, so your inventory expands at the pace needed to fit the game's increasing demands. That is not the case in Endless Labyrinth. You're basically speedrunning to the end of the game, and you don't have the time to meticulously clean every floor, as your passive erosion places a big timer on everything you do, especially at the beginning, when you don't have ease erosion speed leveled up. So instead of having, say, 50 bag space, you'd probably have like 30 to 35. Instead of 80, you might have like 50. The result of this is constant dealing with full inventory 24/7, and holy fuck, it's annoying. I swear, in my achievement grind for floor 160, I spent a considerable amount of time not actually playing the game, and instead spent it micromanaging my inventory and weighing every single item pickup. While yes, inventory management is part of the game, it tends to strike a balance in the main portion. In Endless Labyrinth, it leans too far into the extremely fucking tedious bullshit I'd rather not be doing territory. I think a good solution that would solve both of these issues is by reintroducing the big open spaces into the endless mode somehow, or replacing a few floors on the main path. You could fill this area with loot and upgrade souls, particularly healthy souls, dear god please, solving both the monotony and tedious problems with one stone. The last thing to go over are the achievements. I usually don't care for achievement hunting, but if it's a game I really love, I will often go for the 100%, just to give myself an excuse to continue playing. I like the achievements in this game. They're only available in the Steam version for some reason though. A select few of them are kind of annoying, and the descriptions are kind of vague. I had to search through the Discord for a few of them because I couldn't figure out what the fuck I was supposed to do. What Did You Expect requires the player to clear the starting dungeon. My dumbass thought this meant to beat Clarice on a New Game Plus. I thought Potion Junkie involved drinking several of the same potion repeatedly, but no, it's just buying a bunch of potions from Retzia. That same look requires the player to fix the same weapon like 5 times. It makes sense in retrospect, but I was sort of confused if it was some kind of special event. Some of the achievements are just plain silly, and they feel like arbitrary tasks instead of achievements. Getting a poison of 7 stacks, buying every item from Skewer's shop in one go, getting afflicted with 10 simultaneous buffs and or debuffs, basically chug several of Retzia's special blend and pray. Why Won't You Die requires you to clear 5 floors at max erosion. So, start at the beginning floor, spam curse skills to max it out, and bring a bunch of HP potions. That's it. It's really not that hard to do. And some of these achievements really are achievements and are the highlights. Hard-boiled and hardcore requires the player to beat hardcore difficulty on a fresh save file. That means no reincarnation bonuses. It's the game's ultimate test, and I recommend trying it once you've beaten the game on lower difficulties. Accessory Collector and Where Memories Lie are quite painful, because you need to be fucking meticulous. There are several accessories and memories that can only be obtained during a specific story chapter, and if you skip them, congratulations, you played yourself and need to start the game over. Some accessories are also very well hidden. Make sure you comb every open space and outpost from top to bottom. Check behind objects, and use Sky Eye Stones to reveal the map when necessary. One accessory is very easy to miss and required me to look it up. The potion pouch is given to you by Skewer after you buy a shit ton of garbage from her. How much garbage? I don't know, I lost track. Besides the occasional accessory or decent scrap, you're likely not going to be spending much with her in the first place, so you can literally go the whole game without meeting the criteria and never getting it. And then we have the Hand of the Gods. Craft every single weapon. This shit sucks ass if you don't know what you're looking for. The weapons list will give you a general idea of the category of weapon and its requirements, but you're pretty much playing the guessing game. If your weapon just so happens to be at the start or end of a category, it can be hard to tell exactly what category it's supposed to be in. I would appreciate a hint system that gives you details on the weapon's crafting requirements, maybe unlocked on New Game Plus or something. Thankfully, Precise Forging does make this process a whole lot easier, though you're going to be shitting out souls in the process because, remember, Precise Forging is fucking expensive. The better option is to stockpile materials in the safe house, and then save scum until you get a weapon you need. You're better off spending those extra souls maxing out soul imprints, because Jesus Christ, the last few of those are expensive as hell, and you have to max everything out in order to get the final form achievement. The hardest achievement in the game is probably, well, that was easy, which requires the player to reach floor 160 in the Endless Labyrinth, which is completing 2 entire loops, save for the second fight against Clarice, thank God. Hardboiled and hardcore might be on the same level or harder, but hardcore's brutality is mostly front-loaded in the beginning, whereas Endless Labyrinth gets harder later on due to the inventory shortage and less upgrades compared to the equivalent stage in the main game. Holy fuck. We are done. Finally. 25,000 words of writing, weeks of procrastination, and I can finally put this thing behind me. For those who have watched this entire video, I applaud your commitment. I hope by now you can see just how fantastic this game truly is. It does not matter if it's an eroge. Even though I bought it for that reason, I loved it for everything else instead. It's easily one of my favorite games I've played in the past few years, and it absolutely belongs in my personal Hall of Fame. I hope the team at Asan, who I imagine are watching this, can continue to make great games like this. Part of me is hoping they take some of my rambling and nitpicks here and further polish the game into absolute perfection. But I don't think writing a novel about a game entitles me into asking for changes. I'm just one person who is letting out their thoughts in excruciating detail. Although Distorted Floor should be nerfed 100%, fuck those. A remarkably deep sandbox, an interesting story, great characters, great voice acting, tasty royalty-free and a few custom-composed music, satisfying sound design, amazing replayability and side content, and just overall one of the most solid gameplay loops I've ever experienced, with only a few minor bumps and blemishes to its name. I couldn't ask anything more out of a game that costs only $20. And remember, if this review has taught you anything, let it be this: don't judge a book by its cover. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, whether it's me complaining about SCP Secret Laboratory for another 40 minutes, a long-form review of a different game, or some other kind of random shit I decide to pull out of my ass. I'm Scroats, Jack of many trades, master of none.
Could